Welcome everyone to Google Plus Week. Pleasure to be here on this great Google outage of 2014. I will never forget where I was when it happened. Joining us tonight, we have Mr. Alan Firstenberg. Welcome, Alan, sir.
Hey, Dan. Good to be here as always.
And we have Craig Shipp in Florida. Welcome, Craig.
Hello. Good to be here.
From the Navajo Nation, we have Mr. Harold Carey Jr. Welcome, sir.
Yata E.
Say it again.
Yata E. That means welcome in Navajo.
Does that mean kill the Americans? Or
No, that's universal for welcome.
okay.
Yata E.
I need to. I'm as soon as I finish my Aramaic, I'm gonna brush up on my Navajo. And then we have Mr. Michael Banks in Augusta, Georgia, home of the Masters. Welcome, Michael.
All I know is hello. So.
Howdy. You can't talk in redneck in Georgia? I'm sure you got a few words.
No, I don't have it in me.
I know you got some country music on your iPod.
I sure do not.
He lies. Pam Adger joins us, our newest co-host from Menifee, California. Are you guys still on fire over there, or is that calmed down?
Nope, it's calmed down. Now we're just cooking in the sun. We're going to be 90 degrees next week, so.
Poor baby. It's going to be 0.
How bad is the drought there?
It is epically bad. We might have to start distilling our own water soon from the ocean.
Do they still not have a way to turn ocean water into drinking water that's efficient?
Sure, but no, not efficient. It's extremely expensive.
Don't submarines do that? How do
countries
submarines
like
go down
Saudi
there for a
Arabia.
year?
Israel does.
Yeah.
Israel does.
Dan, submarines do it because they have pretty much unlimited cheap atomic power.
Unlimited what
Yeah.
power?
Atomic power.
Oh, yeah.
It's nuclear powered submarines. So
And they are not exactly cheap.
Correct. But they have
Yeah.
great food.
Yeah.
Um,
Which is not
well,
cheap
if I was
either.
stuck in the metal tube under the ocean, food better at least be good.
Yeah, there's nothing about those that is cheap.
I was on one, and it was neat because the bunks were shared. A destroyer's like that.
Let's keep your personal life out of this.
No,
I'm looking at the
no. I
YouTube
mean,
feed.
because there's only so much space. So, like for 12
I
hours,
know,
they swap.
Dan, I'm
My-
looking at the YouTube feed and it's black. The YouTube feed is there. It comes back. Okay.
It's a delay.
My dad was on submarines for years, so takes a special personality.
So, speaking of blackouts, apparently there was this massive pulling of hair, gnashing of teeth, Google outage. I heard it was a Gmail outage, but Alan, apparently it was more than that. So, what was the situation?
Well, it was a lot more than that. It was essentially all of Google was down for anywhere between 30 minutes and an hour today. They've posted on their official blog an apology and a very rough outline of what happened. But basically what it boils down to is they have a system, an internal system, that that's responsible for distributing configuration to all of the other Google systems worldwide. And this system somehow got a misconfiguration in it. It had either a misconfiguration or a bug, but it had a problem. So it generated an incorrect configuration. And as it distributed that information, all of the systems that it was distributing it to basically became unavailable piece by piece. And they determined what was happening. They started to get engineers looking into the problem. And around that time, the system that was generating these bad configurations now started generating good configurations. Apparently, it could change its configuration for a variety of reasons. So it then started distributing configurations that were good, and people started getting access to their systems again. So over the course of...
basically, it's like Terminator. They've just taken over. They have an issue, and they, like the Borg, they just fixed it without human involvement. It's kind of scary.
Well, I mean, on some level, there was probably human involvement in pushing out these configurations in the first place. But, I mean, largely, a lot of their system has to be automated, taking away the kind of mindless, routine drudgery involved in system administration. That's kind of one of the things that Google was able to achieve in designing its system and in building up this massive computing infrastructure, is automating a huge portion of their systems.
I have a question, basically unrelated, but that brings this issue up as far as scaling stuff. I've always wondered this, like Craig's site, Frederick.com, that's on a single IP address. So if you type that URL, you'll get to that computer, that router, with that IP address through everyone's, all the domain name servers will direct you to that single IP. When you type google.com or facebook.com or what have you, is there a single machine somewhere that's dividing that traffic up? How does that work? How do you deal with a billion users?
Do you really want a complex description of how DNS
I was hoping for a
and
simple
load balancing works?
maybe with visual aids. No, I mean, is there a simple answer? I mean, or is it like you'd have to sit me down for 3 hours after I passed?
I wouldn't have to sit you down for 3 hours, but the basics are, depending on what's actually necessary, there are a lot of different kinds of technologies that will do load balancing or load sharing or failover monitoring, detection, and routing you to the correct machine. Or in some cases, there will just be a single externally visible IP address that gets routed to hundreds of machines internally. So it really depends on exactly how the system, what the best needs of the system are.
But definitely, even though it says google.com/whatever, you, me, and Craig and Pam are really all on different IP addresses masked to appear to be google.com something. Because there's no way a single computer could handle 1 billion users at once, right? Except whatever healthcare.gov is using. Sorry. I guess that wasn't a question. Is he frozen? Alan's having an issue. I guess the Google bug is...
Yep, it's got him.
It's got him. There he is. Where is he? He's officially frozen. Okay.
So, Dan, the answer is yes.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
I thought my question was so dumb that he would dignify it. He wouldn't dignify it with the response.
He doesn't even want to talk to you anymore.
I want to get your training.
There's that too.
Any thoughts, Michael, on this outage? This is a little blip and everyone freaks out. Oh my God, my free services aren't working.
I mean, when you say everyone freaks out, I mean, people really freaked out. I mean, that's not a joke. They were really freaking out.
Did anybody kill themselves?
I didn't even notice.
I didn't notice either. I wasn't online, but
I mean, second to 1929. This was maybe
we should be able to. Maybe we can find somebody that killed themselves, and we can blame it on Google.
Alan, why do people freak out over something that they know is going to be fixed in short course?
Because they didn't know why it was down in the first place. So you don't know that it's going to be fixed in short course.
Usually when something goes down, you think it's your fault before you blame it on them.
Yeah.
I mean, you got to realize, Google's known for having a really, really good uptime. It's the same as once upon a time when the phone system crashed. People were panicked because the phone system had what they were calling 5 nines reliability. That's 99.999% uptime. The chance of your phone crashing was almost zero. So nobody ever experienced it. Nobody's ever experienced Google crashing before. So when it happens, you don't know what that means. What would it mean if suddenly Google was down for hours?
What time did it happen?
We would all be much more productive than we are.
Well, but Dan, remember, this is Gmail. A lot of people rely on Gmail.
Yeah.
What time did it go down?
between Sorry.
It went down. The software started generating these bad configurations at 10:55 a.m. Pacific. So so that was one. That was just before 2 on the East Coast.
So I was playing volleyball. That's why I didn't know.
I mean, if Google really, all of Google went down, hoping that all their subsidiaries like YouTube, hopefully they're not on the same server, then I mean, it would be huge on the internet. I mean, no Gmail, no Google Plus, no Hangout.
Well, did YouTube go down also?
There was no Google Plus. There was no Gmail. There was no Hangout.
What about YouTube?
It all went down. Yeah.
YouTube was down too?
YouTube relies on Google Plus at this stage.
So all of these things were down at 2:30 or whatever, whenever it was.
Wow.
Around then, yeah.
Who in the panel here was on their computer then and experienced this?
I was on then. I noticed that Gmail went down. I noticed that Drive was still working. At least it appeared to still be working. I noticed Google Plus went down, and I said, "Oh well, looks like things are down. They'll get fixed eventually," and I left my machine.
Just to put this in perspective, if you look here, Google makes about $50 billion a year, right? So, as you want to put a cost on this, they make $136 million, $137 million a day. So let's divide that by 24 hours.
But that's the thing, they didn't really lose it. I mean,
Sorry.
Well, Michael,
they'll pay by the minute.
Here's a good question, though, Michael. If the ad services were shut down, yeah, that means they were losing some of their revenue. And if Google Apps was down, that means they were losing some of their revenue. In fact, they would be losing even more because they might have broken their uptime reliability guarantee. I don't know. So these are things that will be interesting. What I'm really going to be interested to see is at some point, somebody is going to publish what the network traffic load looked like for that 1 hour. And I'll be curious to see if it suddenly takes a plummet.
I think I saw that in my stream. Let me see if I can find it.
I mean, I know we have seen such things when, for example, Amazon has experienced long-term outages.
Netflix, yeah.
So they're making 5.7 million an hour.
Okay, so they may have lost $5.7 million on average.
Putting a link in the chat, what to do when Twitter goes down. This is a video that iJustine made back in 2008. So maybe we can put it in the show notes so that people can see this, because this would apply to what to do when Google goes down equally accurately. So we can provide that as a community service that people can have something to do next time Google goes down.
Excellent. All right, so that's the great Google outage of 2014. Okay, so there was another event in the news. 30 years ago, Steve Jobs unveiled a little computer called the Apple Macintosh, and I watched the video of it today. It's pretty wild. They had the Chariots of Fire. The actual event was with Steve Jobs. It was in a bag. He pulled it out. He set it down, and then put a 3.5-inch floppy in it. And then it said stuff and put a little logo in, I'm sure it was at least 16 color graphics.
No. The Mac didn't get graphics for another 8 years?
Color.
Color. Mac didn't get color for another 8 years or so.
Really? Because
maybe it was more like 6 years, but about that.
Yeah.
So, what does this mean? What's the significance of this? What do y'all think?
No significance.
Did Craig just say that the Mac was completely insignificant?
The fact that it's anniversary of this particular machine is meaningless.
So you're saying the Mac is insignificant? Okay, we'll write that one down.
Now the new Mac Pro, that is significant.
But they did such a pretty video. I mean, you should at least talk about that.
So talk about it, Pam.
I didn't see it.
Just being a team player.
No, he wasn't born yet when it came out.
I mean, the old saying,
wasn't?
"What have you done for me lately?" applies here. I mean, what you did 5 years ago, 10 years ago, 30 years ago, or whatever means nothing. It's what you're doing now. And right now, they just came out with a Mac Pro that is just the machine to have if you're producing any kind of content, and if you're, being productive on using computers. I mean, it's a workstation with no equal.
Right, but here's the thing, Craig. If it wasn't for what they did 30 years ago, you wouldn't have that today.
I'm not so sure about that.
No, you wouldn't have it today. You might have better. I mean,
Yeah, we might have
Xerox,
done better. Yeah, we don't know what we'd have, but I mean,
we don't know what we'd have. But I mean, back then you have to remember, we had, essentially we had IBM was totally running rampant over everything. Xerox had an absolutely brilliant concept machine that their executives were not going to let get manufactured because it was going to put a crimp in their core industry of copying. You had people like Jack Trammell, who had incredible vision, but who had a board that didn't know what a computer was. Yes, would we have gotten the Mac? Or would we have gotten the Mac Pro today as we see it today? No, we wouldn't have. If it wasn't for what they did 30 years ago.
Now, to put this in perspective, Alan, the original IBM computer came out in '81. It had no mouse, correct?
It didn't even have a concept of a mouse. I mean, you have to remember, it's actually in some ways a miracle that the IBM PC was produced at all, because IBM was worried about jeopardizing their mainframe sales. So they produced a machine that was in some ways so horribly crippled that nobody would actually want to use it. And yet, despite that, it became a runaway hit.
Because they didn't put the money in to do proprietary stuff. They just threw together stuff with existing non-proprietary hardware, which ended up...
No, there was a lot of proprietary stuff to it. But they didn't think it was going to make any money by itself, so they licensed all of it to other companies.
And of course, young Bill Gates and did pretty well from that. Harold?
Yes, I got the very, very first one. I was working for Computerland of Anaheim, and we were the first. Anaheim was the only distributor, and Computerland was the only distributor at that time. And we got the very first ones in there, and they basically came with a floppy 160K floppy drive, and it had two drives, and the software was MS-DOS 1.0, Easy Rider, and then it had the CP/M operating system. So it came with both the CP/M operating system and MS-DOS 1.0. And so you could buy a software, you could buy a word processor on CP/M, or you could buy Easy Rider, which was written for MS-DOS.
I remember these things. They were about They were about $3 or $4 grand, right? IBM PC.
They were $2,900, around $2,900. Uh-huh.
They were built like a tank, and you could boot it up and then go to 7-Eleven, get your coffee, and then by the time you came back, you had that familiar C prompt.
You didn't have a C prompt then. You had an A prompt, because there were no
that's
hard
right.
drive.
There was no hard drive.
That didn't until the XT.
Yeah, the hard drive, the 10 megabyte hard drive came out 2 years later. We got a 10 megabyte hard drive, and it cost $695 for 10 megabits.
That was a lot back then.
And remember, when we were talking the PC, we're talking, very text-oriented. Harold was right on the money saying that it came with CP/M as an option, because that's what everyone was using at that point. That was what business was using, which ticked IBM off because you couldn't get CP/M for an IBM. But that's part of what this was aiming for. The Mac in some ways turned things upside down, and in some ways it jeopardized Apple's bread and butter. I mean, Apple was making money then on the Apple II, and they were making a lot of money on the Apple II. And there were some people inside Apple, and rumor has it Steve Jobs was one of them, who were worried that the Mac sales were going to jeopardize their bread and butter.
Yeah, the number one, the software program was CPM program called DBase, which
Yep.
was all the businesses wanted that to run their system. It basically could do inventory and all that kind of stuff.
We have to remember also that the Mac was in a lot of ways the cheap scaled down version of one of Apple's biggest flops, the Lisa computer.
Yep.
And the Lisa had a lot of the same things that the Mac had. It had the graphical user interface. It had the mouse. Unfortunately, it also had a massive price tag.
Right.
And it didn't have the operating system that went with it. It didn't have the software that demonstrated why all of this was useful. Apple was really on their way to screwing themselves over. The Mac was a big, big gamble. And there was, no promise that it was going to work.
How popular was it? Because I saw a whole lot more IBM PCs and then the subsequent clones than I saw Macs.
Apple was limping along for years, but the Mac showed people that you could do things. I'm going to quote Apple here, that you could do things differently, and there were definitely groups that latched onto the Mac very, very quickly. Publishers like you dove at the Mac because it was in a form factor that was the right ratio for newspapers and newsletters, so it was a lot easier to do these things on a Mac than it was on a PC, which was still mired in text, and its graphics were worse than the Apple II's graphics at the time. And the Apple II's graphics were no wonderful thing.
Only last several years, because of Adobe's upping their game with CS, the Creative Suite, InDesign, has that shifted, because you still see a lot of legacy publications using Quark, but that's diminishing now because InDesign is so much better.
There's actually an interesting article I read relatively recently about why Quark went on its rapid downhill slope. And part of it is because they didn't support the Mac. And at a time when they were releasing new versions left and right, they were telling people, well, if you want the latest version, switch to IBM. And all of their customers were on the Mac, liked the Mac, used the Mac, and that was right when Adobe came out and said, hey, we're going to support the Mac. So part of the reason why Quark died was because they didn't see a future in the Mac, but all of their customers did.
I think I only know of like 10% of all the names you all said. Like only Adobe and Mac, or like I've never heard of all the Core. That's all before my time, unfortunately.
Well,
I don't miss it because I like what I have now, and from what I've seen in the past, oh no, I couldn't do it.
Yeah, I worked with the Daily Herald newspaper here in Provo, and I set them up they were one of the first companies to go on the web, and basically they were using Quark Express, and they did all the ads and everything at that time was done with Quark Express. Very few people used PageMaker at the time, but that was the two things the publishers used for many, many years, was either PageMaker or Quark Express, and Quark Express had almost every single newspaper at that time, which was in 1984, almost every single newspaper in the United States was done with Quark Express.
And Quark Express originally if I remember correctly, did support the Mac. It was just over time they lessened their support on Mac, and part of that was because the Mac, over time, Apple screwed things up. And part of that was Steve Jobs screwing things up, and part of that was his successors screwing things up. The Mac was not a perfect device for its entire history. It wasn't even a perfect device. I'll be honest. My first memory of a Mac was a friend showing it to me. I sat down, I moved the mouse, and it crashed.
Well, that's not a very good demo, is it?
No, it was a terrible demo. And
that was a demo.
Through college, I had friends who loved their Macs, and it worked great for them. And I'd sit down at their Mac, and it would crash.
I remember there was a program called PC Geos, GeoWorks, that was a WYSIWYG, what you see is what you get, word processor. The first one I ever saw on my 286.
Well, Geos Works actually was derived from stuff that was made for Commodore's machines. And it eventually got to the PC, but part of the reason why it took so long to get to the PC was because the PC architecture was garbage.
It was a neat program. It was a neat suite of apps for back in the day. You could produce really cool stuff. And who invented the mouse? Was that an Apple thing?
No. Here's
Xerox.
the story of the mouse. This is a great story. And in fact, I think we even
Don't leave
covered
anything out.
in
That
the
was Kinko's, wasn't it?
we even covered it in the relatively recent past, I believe. The computer mouse was invented by a team under the head of Douglas Engelbart.
Wasn't it Kinko's?
What was that, Mike?
Wasn't it Kinko's? If I remember correctly.
No.
No?
Who I will tell everyone now is a member of my fraternity.
Douglas Engelbart was a member of your fraternity? Do you want
Yes.
to tell the story, Michael?
No, I don't know the story well enough to tell it as you do.
Okay. And I'm going to be omitting some of the information, but basically he, in a presentation in December 1968, Douglas Engelbart and his team showed a demonstration of what's now called the mother of all demos. And in this presentation, he basically demonstrated technology that we're only now just barely beginning to make widespread use of. He was showing Hangouts in 1968. He was demonstrating how to do collaborative editing in 1968, video conferencing in 1968. And one of the things that his team, interneting, his team was the second node on the internet. They were what were called the augmented computing team, NLS Augment. And one of the things that his team did was they wanted a way to input and manipulate data faster. Remember, this is 1968. Punch cards were still revolutionary then. And punch cards were revolutionary because they were better than paper tape. Okay? And he was showing graphical user interfaces with a mouse. 1968. Unfortunately, his team never went very far with that. It was shuffled from one company to another, and it never got developed. So he created a mouse and he created a cording keyboard. So you were essentially using the mouse with one hand and this corded keyboard with the other hand. You didn't need a real keyboard. This
In
was
68.
68.
Wow.
If you want, in fact, you can find this presentation. I'm sorry, it was the Augmentation Research Center, ARC. You can find this presentation on YouTube. His full presentation is available on YouTube. I really strongly recommend people see it because it's just an incredible thing. I was fortunate enough to see it when I was in college. And we did discuss some of this, by the way, because Douglas Engelbart only died in July of last year.
Yep.
So we talked about it at that time. As the story goes, though, his concepts and the concepts of a number of other people eventually made their way into the Palo Alto Research Center, run by Xerox PARC. And they made, in addition to inventing things like Ethernet, they made a workstation, what we would eventually call a workstation, a networked computer that had a graphical user interface and used a mouse to manipulate this graphical user interface. It was the Xerox Star system. It had the desktop metaphor that we're familiar with. It had some of the electronic publishing concepts that we're familiar with. It had this concept of email, and in order to send an email to somebody, you would drag the document into their icon representing that person. These are concepts that today we'd be very comfortable with in some ways. And this dates to, I believe it was the earlier mid-70s. You know what? Let me see if I can look this up quickly.
It was Xerox I was thinking of, not Kinko's. Yeah, it was Xerox.
Yeah, okay, that's where Kinko's was coming from. Okay,
Yeah, I knew it was printing or copying somewhere.
okay, the Xerox Star was officially introduced in 1981. But it had been designed and built up for a number of years before then.
Now the
One
original.
day on a tour of Xerox, Steve Jobs saw a demonstration of the Xerox Star, and he was so taken by it that he essentially arranged for tours for the rest of his engineering team to go take a look at it. And they essentially stole the entire design and concept. And that was what became the revolutionary computer known as the Lisa.
I wonder why that wasn't patented. Or
It was patented. It was patented. In fact, there was a fierce patent lawsuit
over the
a
mouse.
number of years later between Xerox and Apple and Microsoft. Because by this time, Microsoft had gotten in and had started launching Windows. And Xerox said, hey, guys, we own the patent on this. We did this.
We did this 30 or 20 years ago.
You owe us some money.
Did they settle, or what happened?
I believe Xerox actually lost the lawsuit.
Yeah.
It was actually pretty humiliating in some ways. And recounting it later, I believe in talking about it, Steve Jobs and Bill Gates, in talking about how Microsoft stole the Windows concept from Apple, Steve Jobs accused Bill Gates of stealing it from them, and Bill Gates said, as I remember the story, we both stole it from somebody else. So there was a lot of bad blood about what happened there.
Okay, so the first mouse, let me ask Craig of this. The first mouse for Apple just had a single button, right? And
Every mouse for Apple has only
still
one
like that?
button.
Because like with Windows,
mine has no buttons that I have right now.
You have no buttons?
No buttons.
How do you click?
Well, here, let me hold it up. See, there's nothing. There's no. You can push the whole mouse down. I guess you could call that a click.
It's basically a trackpad built on top of a mouse.
So you can take your fingers and scroll a page up and down by just moving your fingers up and down on it, like this, right? And I can still click on the left portion of the mouse. I can push in the left portion and do, in effect, a left mouse click, and then I can click on the right portion and do a right mouse click.
It just doesn't have any physical buttons, right? It's got an electronic sensor. Or it probably.
Well, no, I think it is actually pushing the whole thing down because it does make a noise. I think the whole thing is pushing down the whole top portion.
Is that an actual Apple mouse though, or is that?
Yeah, this is an Apple mouse, and it's just smart enough to know that you're tapping on the right side, and you can configure those buttons in the settings, so you don't have to have the right area be a right mouse click. I just like that to be that, but you can.
You know what? The original mouse had no buttons either. In fact, let me see if I can do a quick screen share and show this. Okay, there's the first mouse. It was a wooden block with a couple of trackpads a couple of rollers underneath it.
Which they got from like a deodorant, right?
With the on top, I believe, actually an on-off switch. That was the first mouse.
Yeah.
That was the first Xerox mouse you're talking about?
No, that was the first Engelbart mouse. That was what Douglas Engelbart's team made.
Okay, yeah, I think the deodorant thing, that was the Apple's first mouse, right? In development, didn't they get a deodorant canister?
I'll tell you, the thing about this.
I think Wozniak
this
said
mouse,
that story.
The thing about this mouse is, it just really works well. It's just very precise. It works every time. I remember back in the days when I used to have Windows computers, I used to have to take the mouse and like clean it, and I used to have to turn it over, and there'd be like some dust or something on it, so it wouldn't move real well on the mouse pad, and I used to constantly have to mess around with it and tweak it.
Yeah, but you're comparing. I mean, those are modern mice now. I mean, we all have those things with the, with the lights now. I mean, it's
those were junk. I had those. They were junk. I guess it's not until you try an Apple mouse to where you'll see the difference. I guess it's the type of thing where you just have to use it.
Are
and
these
you'll
interchangeable?
my
Like, could
God.
my Logitech mouse work on a Mac and vice versa? Or
Yeah. I think. Well, I know I can use your mouse on mine. I don't know if you can use my mouse on yours. That I don't know. But yeah, I could use any of those Windows mice on mine. I'd sooner cut my throat. And I have knives here to do it. I can tell you, and they're razor sharp.
You got to remember, though, the Apple mouse was not always the ultimate in design. I mean, the early mice would do exactly what Craig just described. The rollers would gunk up. They still relied on the internal roller system, and they did for many, many years. It was Sun Microsystems that first introduced light sensing ones, and they required a special trackpad. It was Microsoft that later introduced ones that didn't require a trackpad, and that was considered amazing at the time.
Okay.
We seem to be suffering some streaming problems, it sounds like.
Yeah, I'm not sure, and I see, and I apologize to Inspector, but often he's complaining about for ignoring comments, but actually there's some the stuff we use to track the comments, because we get them from all over the place. Sometimes there are delays. Sometimes it's real quick. Sometimes it isn't. We're not sure what the deal is. But so far we've got, on our first story, Inspector noticed, Harold, I lived on the reservation when I was a kid. The only word I remember is, I don't know if I should say that. Is that allowed? Is that naughty? What does that mean, Harold? I can't even pronounce it. Did you see that?
And I would say right now we are showing up at least 10 minutes behind live. So there does seem to be some lingering slowdowns going on.
Okay. Interesting. I'll tell you what I'm going to do is, Alan, why don't you take over for a minute? I'm going to get my phone in my next 7 and see what's going on.
We're 10 minutes behind. What else is there to see what's going on?
Well, I'm going to see if I can verify that.
You don't trust me? He doesn't trust me. He trusts me to run the show, but not to tell him that we're 10 minutes behind.
No, I'm saying I want to see if on my connection is 20 minutes behind.
Anyway, so joining us now is also Peter McDermott. Peter, good to see you back from the 1950s again.
I've already gotten confirmation that we're significantly behind. So, for it, Dan.
So, but Dan needs to check on his own. It's kind of like he needs to stick his own finger in the light socket just to know.
You have OCD with your ADD? That must be hell.
So I'm thinking Peter McDermott is not actually with us because his video seems frozen to me.
No, I'm here.
Oh, he's there.
Okay, there you are. So
Am I
Peter,
back alive? Can you hear me?
we got you now.
Okay, so what I did is I disconnected from the wireless and plugged it into the wired, so maybe that's not going to help.
So we've been talking about the Macintosh at 30. Have you ever used a Mac? What's your memories of the Mac?
Oh my God. Okay, wait, I'm unfrozen now. Sorry, little freezer. No, actually, my first memory of the Mac, when I was in kindergarten, I learned how to program in BASIC on an Apple IIe.
Okay, so you go way back along with me.
Yeah, absolutely.
So, did you ever get to play with a 2GS?
No, I did not.
Okay, the 2GS was an interesting device. It was the engineers who were confused about what was going to succeed, the Apple II line or the Mac line. So it was kind of a mutant of both. Am I still alive?
You're still here. I mean, I can hear you. I don't know if anybody else can hear you.
Yeah, okay. So that's
I'm getting
progress.
about 3 frames per minute. Is that a good frame rate?
I don't know. It's better than 0. Kadeaus is joining us now. At least I think.
Hey, it's
Kadeaus
not that that bad. I just pulled it up. I just pulled it up now, and I just heard Peter say, "Hey, I'm not frozen now." So it's only about a minute behind.
Oh yeah, that's not even a minute. That's just a few seconds.
It's supposed to be 30 seconds.
That's about right. So we should be live.
course.
I think they're referring to the schedule and not the frame rate.
Oh, because the show's late. Because Alan was late. I love when
No,
Alan.
I think our topic
I'm-
currently, how long we spent on the topic, I think.
No.
No.
Hello.
No, what's actually happening is that there's something going on with YouTube, and it sucks, and I was about to throw my phone out the window. It was so bad. Like, it's not playing on the other end for everybody. And I just thought it was my phones, and then when I got home, it's doing the same thing on the computers and the Google TV and everything else. It's doing the same all the way across the
They're
board.
asking me about issues, so I'm gonna watch for a couple minutes, and I'll be back. So I'm supposed to talk to him and tell him what's going on. So I'm gonna watch and see what the deal is. On my beautiful,
so-
but it'll probably be a wonderful experience because I'm on my Galaxy Note 2.
Your Galaxy Note 2 with the cracked screen.
It still works great. It's basically
How
nuclear
ghetto are
power.
those phones, though?
See
Dan,
now,
Dan,
probably it's the Mac users who are
I can
experiencing
get
issues.
that. I can get that fixed.
How?
Okay, guys.
I can give you the name and address of someone to send it to, and they'll fix it for you, and I'll give you the price and everything. Okay?
He can go to
No, he doesn't want to pay anything to have it
He can
fixed.
go to
I
any.
don't want to give up my phone for.
Yeah, he doesn't
week.
want to pay.
You have other phones. Just use your other phones while they fix this one.
I only have 3 other phones. This is my favorite, my most favoritist.
Dan,
And the others
go to-
are even more
Dan,
ghetto than this one.
We'll
I only-
talk about this Monday night.
Yeah, anyway.
on our Android week
Anyways.
at 9 p.m. Eastern, 6 p.m. Pacific.
Absolutely.
But Dan, just go to the mall and get it fixed. They'll do it in about 30 minutes.
Excellent. Okay, so what's next, Alan? Unless Kadeaus wants to weigh in on the Mac. I know he's
Kadeaus,
a Mac
what-
fan, right?
Kadeaus, what's your first experience with
Wait,
the Mac?
was Kadeaus? Were you even freaking born in 1984?
We're not gonna talk about my age. So my first experience with
Did your
Apple-
grandparents have an Apple Macintosh?
No. Oh no.
Did your grandparents have one?
No. The my first experience with the Mac would have been maybe it was the Apple II actually. We had those in kindergarten. I want to say kindergarten to like 4th grade. We were using Apple IIs, and you put the 5 and the quarters in, and it would play games like Oregon Trail and stupid number games and stuff like that. So that was my first.
Everyone's first experience with the Mac was actually an Apple II, which is like comparing, you'll pardon the expression, apples and oranges.
Yeah, I mean that was. And I honestly think that's because that's probably the one that was sold the most to education. That's probably why.
They were,
II.
yeah.
I venture to
Yeah.
guess that was actually their most mainstream product ever.
The Apple II?
Yeah, I think so, and I think you've got it right, Kadeaus, and talking about the integration with education. I don't know what incentives they had, but I've seen more Apple IIs than I've seen of any other particular Mac variant, in my experience.
The Apple II was a massive success, and yes, they very, very heavily discounted it to schools at the time. And it's actually interesting. They were in a huge race with Commodore. They were both battling very heavily for the schools. And what really started tipping into Apple's favor was that Apple also then started pitching to businesses. And things like VisiCalc became popular on the Apple, and it took longer for it to catch up on Commodore. So while the Apple was seen as this broad purpose, both educational and business machine, Commodore had almost split its market in some ways. Is anybody alive again? I see Michael moving, but he's the only one for me that's moving on me right now.
I'm still here.
I'm here as well.
I'm here too.
Okay, well,
My dad worked for IBM, so my whole first computer experience is completely different.
why don't you tell us your first computer experience, Pam?
Actually, he worked for NCR first, so in the early 80s.
So did Tom Watson.
Sorry, what?
So did Thomas Watson.
Oh. In the early 80s, we had a home computer. It was DOS-based, and I would do my schoolwork on WordStar, which is DOS-based word processing program.
I remember WordStar. WordStar actually created a number of the keyboard shortcuts that are still in use today.
Yes.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
I gotta say, my first word processor was on a Commodore PET, and I talked to my teacher to find out if she would let me submit some of my homework typed. And she was first concerned that somebody else was going to be typing it for me, and then she was concerned that the computer was going to do it for me. And I had to reassure her that no, the computer wasn't smart enough to actually answer the questions. I was going to be writing them all myself.
Sounds like how people feel about glass.
Thank you, Kadeaus. That's exactly the point that I was going to be making from there. So yeah, attitudes have not really changed all that much in 30 some odd years.
And that's a great segue into what I'm showing here, which is Craig's first computer.
Absolutely, and it works every time it's tried. I actually did have one of those.
Did you have a slide rule too?
I had an Abacus, yeah.
I actually had one too.
Yeah, and they work every time they're tried. That actually is what instilled in me the value of having gear that works and that's reliable, and that's why I do buy the Apple products.
You know, Craig,
it's similar to an abacus.
It's very similar. Works every time it's tried.
By the way, don't laugh, because I'll tell you, when we lived in Greece, I lived in a bunch of countries as a kid. I was born in Japan, lived all over the place. In Greece, you'd go to a store, and some of the stores would actually use an abacus. We're talking like, I guess, this late 70s or mid 70s or something, and they would use an abacus to ring up your purchases. That's what they knew. You know,
Absolutely,
It worked
and
great.
it worked.
Yeah,
It
sure.
worked.
you know,
They're
Craig.
fast with them.
I mean, I will admit,
Very
this
fast.
is also why I didn't use a Mac for so many years. Is because it was a horrible, horrible experience for me mostly. But Craig, you never did say, what was your first Mac?
Mine was a PowerBook G4. So now we're probably going back about 10 years or so when they came out. I don't remember exactly when they came out. And so I guess I was lucky. The first one that I bought was actually a pretty daggone good unit.
Also, you were coming from Windows Vista, which was
I
the
actually
low point of the modern Windows
2000.
versions.
No, I was using Windows 2000 NT or whatever, and that was the best Windows that they had at the time.
You know, I'll say Windows 2000. I still think that was the best OS ever.
Yeah,
It was just slow.
it was good. It was good, and I went from that though to the Mac, and then it was just no comparison. It was just like
Now you went right into OS X, or were you still using System 9?
I don't know what the PowerBook G4 shipped with. I don't remember now, but it was one of the first PowerBook G4s that they came out with. So we'd have to look at the history of that and what it had on it. But it was an aluminum, 15-inch PowerBook. It wasn't the titanium.
The aluminum PowerBook G4s could only boot in OS X. So you never had the experience of System 9.
Okay, so what year did it say that came out? The PowerBook G4, did it say?
According to Wikipedia, it came out January 10th, 2006.
No, that's when it was discontinued.
Discontinued. I'm sorry. Excuse me. 2001. Yep.
So
No,
how much was
2001 to 2003 was the titanium model. 2003 to 2006 was the aluminum model.
Yeah, that's what I had. I had the aluminum one.
So the IBM PC was 81, and that was $3,000. How much was the Macintosh, which came out in 84? Because wasn't it mainly a West Coast thing? I mean, mainly like students were using it on the West Coast more than the East Coast, and IBM was strong in the East, and then the Commodore 64, which was genius. The first time I ever saw a computer, my dad's accountant, or whoever did his taxes, had a Commodore 64. And I was a little kid, and so they showed me a game. It was really cool. It was probably an amber monitor or green monitor or something, one color. And but it was really neat. And then I think either shortly before or shortly after that, the first really awesome computer game I saw was Pong. Back when it was even before, for young people, they wouldn't imagine, you didn't buy like a computer game machine that had different cartridges or whatever. You bought a game, and Pong was, that's all it did was play Pong. It was awesome, and we played for hours and hours, and it was this most simple thing that,
Yep.
I could have, later on I could have coded that in an afternoon, but it was so awesome. And then the first computer I used regularly was at Fort Union Military Academy around 83, 84. It was a Timex Sinclair laptop, but it wasn't like an unfolding laptop like we think of now. It was more like a tablet where you had the keyboard and you had a little tiny screen in the top right, and you could only see like maybe 30 characters. But I wrote a program for the football players, and so I was coding, when I was in the 9th grade, and it was a Q&A quiz, a pop quiz for Spanish, because there were some football players that were trying to get better grades in Spanish so they could keep playing football or whatever the thing was. And then my first computer I ever bought was a 286 with an Amber monitor. And then
so Dan, to answer your question, the first Mac, what was later dubbed the Mac 128K, sold for $2,500.
And what about the Commodore 64? Or was that an earlier era? Was that in the same era with these two, or was that a predecessor?
The Commodore 64 was released slightly later. The VIC-20 was introduced earlier. But trying to compare the two is actually difficult. The C64 was intended a little bit more as a game machine than the Mac was. The VIC-20 and then the C64 more harken back to what Atari was trying to do at the time, and that's kind of where Trammell was fighting his battles.
And also,
Trammell eventually went to Atari because of that.
To give credit where credit's due, we're neglecting the Trash 80. That was a big hit too. The Radio Shack TRS-80 computer. A lot of folks use that. The first ones I ever saw in the government environment were Wang, but they were mainly dumb terminals.
The TRS-80 Level 2 was actually my the first computer that I learned on. But again, it predates. I mean, the TRS-80, the Commodore PET, the Apple II, not even the Apple II Plus or the IIe, those three machines all came out around the same time. They were really all competitors to each other, and seeing how the lines kind of grew from there is an interesting study in evolution. I mean, the TRS-80 line kind of faltered in some ways because they were being sold by a hobbyist store. That, I mean, their biggest credit is they were a nationwide chain and they had this nationwide network of support. But what that chain was mostly selling to before were people who were buying transistors, not whole computers. Commodore took off in Europe and Canada, never quite took off in the U.S. in the same way that it did in those places. And although it had some business segment to it, largely as it moved into the VIC-20, the C64, the C128 line, and eventually the Amiga, it was more aimed as a game machine, a programmable game machine, but very clearly a game machine. While the Apple ended up being the more general purpose of them all. It had a lot of games, but it also had this business angle.
Okay, so let's conclude this topic by talking about the future, and then I want to get to the Google Glass movie theater experience, which didn't go well. But let's talk about 5 years, 10 years from now, because when I was growing up, the IBM PC clearly was the dominant computer. It still is. And Apple was niche mainly because of price. Apple's always put out wonderful products, but there's a premium you pay. And also, the IBM clones had the advantage of anybody could make one. You could build one today. You can't necessarily, I mean, you can do a hackintosh, but mainly you buy a Mac or you build a PC or buy a PC. But we're seeing a shift now, largely, I think, because of the dominance or the prominence of the iPhone and the iPod and all that stuff, making people take a better look at Apple's products in general. So we're seeing now it's quite common to see a MacBook Pro or an iMac in the work environment or the home environment, whereas that wasn't necessarily the case because of the price point a few years ago. So where are we going to be in 5 years? Because we're seeing like the Microsoft's move into the Surface, the whole touch thing. We're seeing the rise of the tablet. We're seeing a big shift to mobile. A lot of folks don't even have a computer; they're just using their phone. And the phones now, the modern iPhones and the modern Android phones are enough for a lot of folks. So where are we going in this? Let's do the comment here from Alan, and then tell me where we're going to be in 5 years. Where's the IBM PC going to be? Where's the Mac going to be as far as market prominence and as far as what are people going to be using for productivity and also recreation? What do you got there, Alan?
We have this comment from Michael Daniels for Craig asking or pondering out loud if they had a gold abacus at the time.
My abacus was gold. I can't speak for...
Did Kadeaus, did Dr. Dre ever put out a golden abacus?
Not that I know
of. Beats by Dr. Dre. Okay, so where are we going to be, Alan, and then whoever wants to weigh in on us in a few years? Where are we going? Because that's the big question, right? Everyone's wondering this, and all the companies are fiercely competing, and we're not really sure.
I think, and we covered this actually a little bit a couple of weeks ago. I do think while we're still going to see a lot of general-purpose computers that are out there, more and more we're going to see them being used in more specialty ways. So we're going to see the general-purpose computers slowly start to fade away.
So we're going to have like a bunch of ancillary devices, like, accessory devices that tie into the cloud or whatever.
Yeah.
And one workhorse kind of desktop thing at home for things like picture editing and gameplay and things like that.
That's about where I see it going. Yeah.
I thought we were already there.
I don't think they'll have a workhorse machine. I think they'll be doing all that on an iPad. Most people.
As I say, I can't do photo editing on it's too small. And the older I get, the worse my eyes get. I need a big ass monitor.
You're going to die off, and they'll be.
No, it's about the production versus the consumption of content. And what device is appropriate for that? If you're writing a novel, you're not going to do that on a tablet. But if you're reading a novel, a tablet's fantastic.
They probably will, Dan. They probably will be doing it on the tablet, but they'll probably
be do it on the tablet now, Dan.
They might be dictating it.
I'm a writer. I would never write. I
don't
write anymore. I don't write anymore.
Yeah, but
I sign
Dan,
my name on checks.
You're a weirdo.
Here's the thing. There will be people who will write using these things, which probably will look like primitive typewriters on some level. In the same way that we're going to have people producing movies on very, very specialty devices. But for most of the people who are doing photo editing, most of the people that are doing video editing, and most of the people that are going to be writing anything, they're going to be able to use more generic, more devices like the tablets, the simple laptops, those things, because they don't need all of the power.
Yeah, and they'll probably just be dictating. They won't be typing things into it. They'll just be telling it what they want.
And also, really, this isn't.
Point there.
This is like viewed as a negative by so many hardware manufacturers who haven't figured this out. But really, it's a boon because we're all buying more things now. Everyone wants a phone. They want a tablet. They want a laptop. They may or may not want a desktop. Soon they're going to want some kind of wearable, a watch, or some consumer version of glass or what have you. But if they play their cards right, this is an opportunity to sell more devices to more folks. It's really rearing its head now.
But a lot of those devices are very low margins, like all the Android phones and so forth. Very low margins on those.
It doesn't matter.
They make their money if they're smart. Like Apple's made a lot of money because they get a cut.
Yeah, but their margins are huge, and that's the exception to the rule. I mean,
and remember, Apple is a hardware company, not a software company. Apple makes its money on hardware.
Well, they also make their money in the App Store.
No.
Very little.
Very little.
Very little.
They make some, but for the most part, they make their money on the hardware. And
that's doomed.
And everyone else does the exact opposite. They make all their money. Amazon, he admitted.
Actually, most of the others don't make very much money.
What is Apple's revenue from iTunes, though, as a percentage of their total revenues?
I don't know.
Small. I don't know what the number is.
Is it?
Small.
I'm curious. I think it takes a bigger chunk.
Most of the money they're making off the iPhone right now.
But most of the physical downloads of music is from iTunes.
Excuse me?
Most most download of music, not streaming music, but download for digital copies of music is through iTunes.
Yeah, but they don't make that much money on that. They make the money on the iPhones. They sold 55 million iPhones in like the last quarter. I mean, it's insane how many of those they're selling. And how much money they make on each one is insane. And that's not going to continue. It can't continue. They're going to be brought to their knees.
Mm-hmm.
Apple?
Yes.
How? Why?
They can't maintain those margins. Their margins are way too high. And at some point, Android will get their act together to where they'll build a better phone than they are now. And a lot of people...
Well, wait a minute. Android doesn't build phones, though.
Well, the people that make Android phones, okay, they'll get their act together and they'll start building something close to as good as an iPhone, and then it's going to be a problem.
I think one that's already done.
Don't you think LG's already done that?
I think you are right, Craig, on the Apple them coming to their knees because Android has challenged them to make more phones quicker, and now they're talking about making another phone that has a bigger size. Now they're making errors, and that's why they're not making that much margin, because they would have to release new hardware every so often like they're doing now.
Well, but there are still people that are jumping ship from Apple to Android, even though Android isn't quite there yet. And when Android does get there,
that's arguable.
The software is as good as Apple, and the hardware is as good as Apple, and the whole package is as good as Apple. When they get to that point, that's when Apple will be in deep trouble, because
you already see it though now.
These folks that are selling the Android phones, they don't care if they make any money. They don't care if their margins are paper thin. Apple does care.
Just to toss a number in here, it looks like from trying to scrape together some numbers from different places, it looks like Apple gets about 1/5 of its revenue from the iTunes store.
That's 20%. I mean, that's nothing to balk
and how
at.
much from the iPhone?
You mean from sales of the iPhone?
Yeah.
I couldn't find that offhand.
Well, gross and net are two different things.
I think it's like half from iPhone. It's
that's direct revenue, not net.
If iPhone were spun
profit. I think they're profit.
If the iPhone were spun off as a separate company, it'd be one of the biggest tech companies. It'd be
I
one of the
think
biggest
their
companies.
profit on the iPhone is like half of their profit. It's just a huge amount.
Well, Craig, and I think it's the iPhone and the iPad coupled. Don't discount the iPad because that's a big.
Yeah, but the iPad is like probably another 10 or 15%. The iPhone's probably half, then probably 15% for the iPad, and then iTunes is in there, right?
I'm pulling up their earnings release from Q4 right now.
Good. Let's get some facts.
Never let facts get in the way of a good argument. And good luck in trying to find the numbers in there, because it didn't. It out, Peter.
Maybe we should have like This Week with Apple, or what? Are we gonna have a new show?
Well, we're getting around to Google now. We're talking about how Android is going to unseat the king.
Starting to now. They unseated him a long time ago, but I mean, sure.
That's what I was wondering, Craig.
In the last quarter, Apple still sold more iPhones in these United States than any other phone, so they're still number one by far.
Again, you're jumping ships on both sides. You're saying Android, or you're talking about one company like Samsung, but Android is like all.
Apple sold 55 million phones.
And Android sells way more than them worldwide.
Nobody else came close.
Okay, guys. Let's start bringing this around. Any final thoughts on 30 years of the Macintosh? Anybody?
I will say that my school, since they became a research institution, they've just purchased like all of the new iMacs for like the entire school. So that's my like.
They just bought them now? They just bought iMacs?
They bought like literally like 100 of them over the summer.
Oh my gosh! You must go to a rich school.
They just rebranded themselves as a research institution, so I mean...
I'm sure that those iMacs will feature prominently in their brochures and website photos.
I find that kind of funny, because I'm not sure I would consider the iMac a really good research device.
Not at all. Not at all.
All right, so credit where credit's due. The Mac was a revolutionary product. It was constantly innovated. It's a fantastic machine.
Still overpriced.
Steve Jobs.
It didn't constantly innovate.
And it's still overpriced.
It had its bursts of innovation.
Well, basically, when Jobs left and he formed Next, didn't the modern Macs now derive from what he did at Next?
Oh, yeah.
Anyway, there's lots of
modern Macs are
intrigue
really
and
next boxes.
drama and all that stuff. So,
And they're still overpriced.
all right, we got like 50 topics tonight, and we're an hour into the show. So let's go ahead and start topic number
Yeah,
3.
but we got 8 hours, right?
I don't
And
think
most
so.
of those
It's YouTube
topics are-
Live. We have 36 hours, but I think only
Look,
4
so-
recorded.
I think we got 8 hours. I think it'll work. We'll give it a shot.
As long as you're here for
I
all
will
of them.
point out that Craig usually bails on
Yeah,
us.
he
I'm
does.
not, I'm
Yeah,
not going to
he
be
does.
here for all of
He
them.
does. He's not here the whole time.
We'll probably still be going when you're starting your volleyball in the morning.
I have.
Um,
I got 2 more hours. That's it.
Okay, here's the real news, though, with Apple's 30 years, is 2 weeks ago, Steve Wozniak endorsed Xiaomi, and I think that's huge.
You
endorsed
want to
what?
explain that one a little more, Peter?
I mean, Alan, if you're aware of it, I would love, you could probably speak more intelligently of it, but Xiaomi is a Chinese mobile electronics manufacturer, and Steve was over there looking at their product line and basically said it's fit for the American market.
Wasn't
this
that the
would
one
be-
that the Android VP just went to?
Could have been. Could have been.
Oh, I can't think of his name.
But anyway, that just shows you, though, you're talking about Apple in 30 years, and there's a speculation of Steve Jobs rolling over in his grave. You have Steve Wozniak goes over to China and says, "Oh wow, this Chinese company is actually coming up on the iPhone." I think that's pretty cool. So there's a company that's not innovating nearly as much as they used to be 10 years ago. I
We'd
think
also
anybody
point
in
out
this
that
panel will agree with that.
We'd also point out that although Wozniak is very happy with how much he makes from Apple, continues to make from Apple,
Wait a minute,
he
Peter.
is not exactly brand loyal.
I definitely will take exception to this old not innovating argument. The iPhone 5S that they just came out with
Oh my
is
goodness.
significantly faster than anything else out there. Nothing out there.
Not with the animations, they're not.
Nothing out there can touch it. Nothing,
Craig-
nothing.
Hey,
Craig,
Craig.
And it's got a fingerprint reader that I can just touch my finger on and it
Craig-
launches the phone. I mean,
Craig is right.
what
Craig
kind
is
of
right.
what? How much
iOS
innovation do you want? It's the
iOS
best phone out
Wait,
there.
hang on. I think my earbud's breaking. Is Alan agreeing
There has
with
never
Craig?
been as
Get
many
close
crashes
to
on the
it.
iOS platform as there has been now. iOS 7 breaks new ground in
Yes.
crashing.
Mine works fine. I haven't any
I can
problems at all
speak
with
to
my
it, Craig. I got a freaking iOS 7
I
device.
start-
$800.
I start my gold iPhone about once every 2 weeks. I reboot it just for fun, just for recreation.
What's the next up? What's the
Okay?
next
It hasn't crashed ever.
Oh,
it works
that's
perfectly.
only because somebody calls you every 2 weeks, Craig. Come on.
No, nobody calls me. Why would somebody call me?
Well, that's why you don't need to. That's why you don't need to restart.
Anyway,
your phone.
guys,
Nobody emails me.
Okay,
nobody
so
tweets
a guy's
me.
in
I
a
don't know
movie.
why.
Okay,
It must
did
be
you hear
my
the one?
personality.
Did you hear the one about the guy in the movie theater? So he's in a movie theater. He's wearing Google Glass, and this was an AMC theater cinema. The guy is just minding his own business. He's not recording anything.
Allegedly, Dan.
Allegedly. But they checked and they let him go. But anyway, so the guy.
I'll let you keep going. I want to come back on that though.
Okay. All right. So he's sitting in the theater, and this is a
you
theater
have to
where they
mention
had.
which movie he's watching, Dan.
Oh my God!
That's a big part of it, Dan.
Did he have
That-
buttered
that is
or
an important
non-buttered
part of it.
popcorn?
That's a big part of it.
It was the Jack Ryan movie, wasn't it?
Yes, it
Yeah.
was.
So, anyways, so he's sitting there, allegedly not recording anything, apparently watching Jack Ryan movie, and I think his popcorn was buttered. So he's sitting there. There was a mauve pattern on the seats. So anyway, if I've missed anything,
Was there any spittle on the seat?
was it 8 p.m. or the midnight showing? I can't. So he's sitting there watching the movie, and this is a
Did
theater.
he have a raincoat on?
That's all he had on, actually. That's all he was wearing. Google Glass and a raincoat.
Great.
He was actually getting ready. Ironically, he was getting ready to star in a movie. So anyway, he's watching the movie, and this is a movie theater where they had some piracy issues before. They'd had people in there before filming movies. So I guess the local theater
allegedly,
calls the cops.
allegedly.
Allegedly. Oh my God, you guys
also
can
should
put.
point out that he has allegedly
God.
been to this theater multiple times in the past wearing Google Glass.
You know there's a mute
Yeah.
button for Peter G, right?
Oh yeah, but I'm just he hasn't turned the air blue yet. So he's obviously about two beers away from having a full-scale Gmail-sized meltdown.
So Dan, finish telling the story.
So anyway, sitting there, and they apparently call the authorities, and they bring some Homeland feds in, and these goons come up. They approach the guy. They take his glass off of his face, and they say, "Come with us," and they take him to the office, and they grill him for a long time, and he's like, "Dude, plug the freaking thing in the computer. You can look. It wasn't on. I wasn't recording anything. You can check." And he allegedly, according to him, he offered, this is all his version of events, right? And then he said, "Look, I didn't record anything. I was just wearing my glass." And they were prescription type, right? So it's not like he could just not wear them. He wouldn't be able to see the movie, or he could have brought another pair of glasses. So I can see where someone might be suspicious.
So finish telling the story. So he's grilled for how long?
A significant amount of time. Wasn't it like over an hour?
3 hours.
Wow, like almost a Google Plus week. He was grilled. Can you imagine? Being, these Neanderthal goons grilling you. So it turns out that they did not determine that he had recorded anything. His story checked out. They I'm sure with their substantial IT skills, which you would expect out of goons, they were not able to locate anything, and he was released. And the Homeland Security Department did confirm this. I think this was a Reddit post or something, or was on Reddit. And then Homeland Security came out and confirmed that there was an incident at the theater, and they said that there had been other incidents in the past. And then AMC said, and this is the second part of the story, is they said it's not appropriate to wear glass, Google Glass, in a movie theater setting. So let's begin with, I guess, Alan, who has glass, and
let's begin with Peter, who also has glass.
Peter, yeah, go ahead. Peter, you got glass. What do you think about this?
All right, so I'm probably going to get in a little bit of trouble for diving into what I'm about to do here.
We like
two
that.
things. Number one,
get in trouble.
Right. Number one, I'm a glass explorer. Number two, I used to work in a non-law enforcement capacity for a police department. I worked in private security for the University of Tennessee Police Department. If you're on my LinkedIn profile, you can find that out.
You're like Dexter.
Everything that we've heard from this story is based on the allegation of an unconfirmed anonymous source. There's about 25 different holes in the story that we're getting from this anonymous source.
Real quick, just to say this, Peter, Homeland Security. I saw a statement from the Department of Homeland Security saying,
"No, okay, Dan, but let me finish here."
They
what you
confirmed
saw
the
was a
incident took
statement
place,
from
and they didn't refute anything that was said.
What you saw from Homeland Security was one email sent from one individual that works for the Immigration and Customs Enforcement, which is a part of Homeland Security under the restructure after the Patriot Act, which I'm not going to get into politics. We can talk about that on another
Do we
episode.
have a specific code citation? No, I'm just kidding.
Well, no. What I'm trying to say here is what I did after hearing this story is, first of all, I thought the whole thing was bullshit. I didn't believe an ounce of anything this guy said. Number one, because there would be no reason to do a stop, halt, frisk. There's no probable cause that he was doing anything wrong. And the question that I first had when I read this is they contacted the MPAA, who conducted an investigation. Well, I don't know about you, but the MPAA is akin to PBS. And I don't think PBS can walk into a movie theater and conduct an investigation.
Well,
they're not a law enforcement branch. They're a private association. They can't investigate anything. That's bullshit.
Hang on, Peter. Let's stop for a second and look at that piece first. My understanding is that the MPAA was already on site, and that was because the theater was claiming there were allegedly people violating the copyright, and the MPAA has a massive anti-copying effort out there.
Great. Well, that's like telling me that the Tea Party was at the Democratic Convention. Does that mean they're able to do anything there?
No, what that's telling me is the equivalent of they have a bunch of private investigators who are standing around movie theaters investigating. So I can see the MPAA as a bunch of private investigators.
Now, you make an interesting point. You make a very interesting point, because movie theaters being private property, they could, of course, have their own private security, which means they could have their own private investigations. If this guy was under a voluntary interview, I could see that being the case. Now, my only question is, I've emailed AMC, the MPAA, and ICE, and I've received no response from all three, from a journalistic perspective, telling me I'm trying to write an article. Just asking for some sort of statement. The only statement to come out of AMC came from the theater. There's nothing official released. There's been nothing released from the MPAA. and there's been nothing released except save that one email from the Customs Enforcement officer. There's been nothing officially released. He said, yeah, you can attribute that quote to me. But what I'm thinking is the reason we're not seeing releases from AMC, the MPAA, or ICE, or anyone in DHS is because all of this is unfounded allegations, but it scares the shit out of people, and they like that, and they're not going to refute that.
So, Peter, are you saying then that folks that own movie theaters should not be able to shoot glass holes on site? Is that what you're saying?
Yeah, I mean, I was actually trying to make a serious point out of the fact that I think a lot of these allegations are just absolutely asinine.
All right, real quick,
they
let me
don't
go to
hold
the
any
statement
water.
here. Let me go to the statement. The Immigration Customs Enforcement's Khalid Walls confirmed the incident took place. AMC had the following statement: movie theft is something we take very seriously, and our theater managers contact the Motion Picture Association of America anytime it's suspected that someone may be illegally recording content on screen. While we're huge fans of technology and innovation, wearing a device that has the capability to record video is not appropriate at the movie theater. So I guess you shouldn't bring your telephone.
Right, so I've seen this. I've seen it elsewhere as well.
exactly.
But the original attribution to that
They
quote
said
was
wearing
somebody
it.
from
They
the
didn't say
theater,
bringing
not
it.
somebody from AMC.
Okay, what if I was sitting like this, just to be devil's advocate, I was sitting like this, watching a movie, just holding my phone, minding my own
I
business.
think
watching
they
the
should
movie.
be able to shoot you.
And they came up to me, and I said, "What? My phone's off. I'm not recording anything." You know what I mean?
I
I
think
mean,
they
that's
should be
basically
able to
what
shoot
that's
you.
how they viewed it.
Craig, that happened
I'm
2 weeks
guessing.
ago. You're aware of that, right?
Yeah, that's right. And I think they
Okay.
should be allowed to do that.
It's
It's their
probably-
theater, and they should have you sign a release when you come in that if you hold up a phone, we're going to shoot you on site. And then that way, nobody will go into the theater, and the theaters will go out of business, and we can all watch it at home.
It's probably too soon to joke about that. Alan, what do you think as a glass hole extraordinaire? What do you think?
Thanks, Dan. I appreciate it. I think there are a massive number of issues here. And honestly, I'm torn on a lot of them, and I keep going back and forth on some of them. I think it's in some ways unreasonable to expect somebody to put glass away, but I think it's entirely reasonable to say that glass should be off. I think there's some obvious designs. There are obviously some things about glass, how it was designed, that make it obvious when you're recording something. And I think it behooves those of us as glass explorers to help to help people understand that, and it behooves the people that are responsible for enforcing copyright to learn and understand that.
But,
Is this
you know,
guy
they-
going to
but
be
because
able
of
to
the
record
exclusive-
something that's even usable? I mean, my God,
No, but
the-
here's the
video and
no,
the
it
audio
would
would
suck.
be terrible.
It would suck,
Right.
and as Alan's pointed
But
out on Monday, it
hang
would
on,
heat
Craig,
up.
Craig, to answer you, no. But you have to remember that, within 2 weeks before any movie is released, you can get DVDs of that movie on the street corner in Manhattan or just about anywhere in China, and they were filmed from the audience using crappy cell phones. So people are already used to looking at crappy versions of a movie. No, you're not talking high quality, but nobody, the people that are
They'll buy
watching
it
the
anyway.
pirated versions
People
don't
buy it
care.
anyway. Well, the bottom line is the theater can have a policy that you don't wear something like that, and if they see somebody wearing something like that, they should ask them to leave. That's it. I mean, it's not
Well-
rocket science. They shouldn't take them and interrogate them for 3 hours. The feds shouldn't be involved. The feds shouldn't even exist, first of all.
So Craig,
See,
should
that's
all
my
be
whole
fired.
point, though, is I don't
Alright,
think
they're all a
any of
bunch
this
of
actually
jerks.
happened.
People that strip search little old ladies at airports and all, they're a bunch of jerks. They should all be fired. We shouldn't be paying for any of these
Let's
jerks.
see. Okay, let's
So Craig, no,
let's see
hang on a second. So Craig, you think it's entirely appropriate for the MPAA to have done that directly?
I think it's appropriate for whoever owns the theater to decide who's allowed to come in the theater and watch a movie and how they should act when they're in the movie theater.
But what do you think that AMC
If they don't
president?
want you wearing glass, they should tell you when you come in that you can't wear that. And if you say, I'm going to wear it anyway, they should politely ask you to leave.
That
No,
assumes
Craig,
that they
that's a
said
good
that.
point.
Peter,
Wait,
Peter,
wait,
what's
wait,
on your
wait.
Peter?
You
Put,
know, look, I haven't had a chance to talk barely at all.
Go ahead, Pam Adger.
Okay.
Go, Pam.
Back in the day, they used to have ushers in the theaters. Okay, they had the flashlights. They came around. If someone was doing something or saying something or throwing drinks on people or popcorn or whatever, they would escort you out of the theater.
That's right.
You know? It's as simple as that.
That's right.
They don't even do that crap anymore. They're a bunch of scaredy cat, you know. I don't know what's going on, but no one enforces any of the rules except this one. And it's ridiculous. I have to sit and listen to someone going, yeah, did you know? Like 3 days ago. It was only 3, you know. I have to listen to that in the freaking movie theater, and if I go out and complain, they're like, oh, well, we'll get you a free ticket. No, drag that MF out of the theater and make them leave.
I will say, in my local movie theater, they have a rule that you are not allowed to have your phone light. Like, you know, if you're texting, you see the light on.
Yep.
If they see that, they will put you out of the theater. They enforce that because there's a lot of teenagers that go there. They have a police officer on site all the time at night. So I mean, they enforce rules, but
that's down in the South. They got some crazy shit going on down there.
Yeah, but like this rule right here would not.
It's not just in the South. It's in the Midwest
too. That wouldn't bother anyone down here because I mean they're not in the technology down here. So I mean we don't have any issues with copyright and all that.
Yeah.
But their biggest thing is texting here.
It all depends on where you are. I mean, in the Front Royal Walmart, you just go in or whatever you buy stuff. It's nice and casual. When I was in Lynchburg, the city of Lynchburg, there's like security guards racing around, staring through shelves on the phone. You know, like someone's stealing razor blades or whatever. That apparently there's a big market in that. So it all depends on if you're in a big city which has a lot of crime, then they respond. If you're in a rural area, it's different.
Stop thinking about policing, and let's get back to Craig's point. Craig made a very, very good point. We're talking about a private business, and under the Constitution, they have the right to refuse service to anyone. However, they failed to do that when they had the opportunity at, first of all, vending this man a ticket, tearing his ticket, and letting him into the actual theater room.
Do they have a right to detain an innocent person for 3 hours?
No. Well, that's where these allegations hold no water because he said it was a voluntary interview. He actually gave that up in his recount.
Listen, at some point, if 6 Neanderthal movie theater goons, I mean, talk about
wait a minute
like
now,
movie theater cop. Wait a second, Craig. If 6 guys, you know, burly guys or whatever, have you in the office, at some point, how voluntary is that?
Well, wait a minute.
You're thinking in your head, well, if I leave, I might get beat up or arrested or shot.
Who
they
was
might
it? Was it the
accuse
feds
me of a
or was
crime
it
that I
people
didn't do
that
it.
were...
Craig, it was a bunch of people that showed him a phony badge and wouldn't give him a business card.
So
which is what leads me to believe this was a bunch of overzealous mall cops, some of them in uniform and some of them not.
So there weren't any feds involved. I thought there were feds.
Well, no.
The ICE was
ICE
said Homeland Security. Dan used the
ICE
word
is claiming that they did respond to the incident.
An ICE, which is the Division of Homeland Security spokesman or Representative Khalid, whatever, Walls, said that the incident took place, and AMC, none of them have disputed anything the guy said.
They don't. Of course, they're not going to. It's fear mongering. They're not going to. AMC, MPAA, and ICE, none of them have made any statement whether to confirm or deny.
Feds there?
And I don't believe anybody's going to because they love this scare tactic. What on God's green earth does ICE have to do with anti-piracy or copyright law? Somebody in this hangout tell me.
Were they there?
They would have everything. Customs would probably be the agency that would investigate software piracy, which usually ends up overseas.
Were they there?
Craig, we don't know. He couldn't see the badge in his report, so we don't know if they were actual feds or not.
We don't know if the feds were there or not.
No,
right.
We don't.
That's my whole argument.
So,
is I think all this is unfounded.
If the feds were there, if they were there,
who said they were there?
I'm just saying if they were there.
The feds said they were there. ICE said they confirmed it.
That is the 1,000-pound gorilla in the room. That is the issue here.
It's a federal crime.
The issue is this huge, overreaching federal government, which probably most of you all voted for. Okay, this huge, overreaching federal government that is sticking their paws in everything we freaking do.
Okay, Craig, how is the government of Kansas City going to...
Now you can
lie. Policy. This is
okay.
policy you're talking about.
I got 2 questions. How is the government let's say this, whatever town this happened in. Let's say it was in
And
Kansas.
I'm saying if the feds were there. I'm saying
Craig,
if.
A, the feds were there. B, how is a little tiny municipal government going to police mass piracy in India and China?
They
Well,
don't need you. The manager of the theater goes in and tells the guy to leave. That's it. Done.
No, Craig. For starters, you're wrong.
Wait.
Second, Dan is wrong too.
Cybernaut says, "Oh my God, I almost agree with Craig."
Where am I wrong, Alan? And
You're
is that
wrong in you're wrong in your comment that it is a federal crime.
What? That's a federal
Copyrighted.
crime.
at the
Copyright,
beginning
and
of every?
Let me finish. Thank you.
Finish.
I am quoting the Copyright Office right now at copyright.gov. They have a frequently asked question on infringement. Quoting from them, although there are copyright laws that are cited here, they do say, in general, copyright infringement is generally a civil matter which the copyright owner must pursue in federal court. Under certain circumstances, the infringement may also constitute a criminal misdemeanor or felony, but those are prosecuted by the Justice Department. But in general, it is a civil matter.
Why is there an FBI warning at the beginning of every DVD?
Because
that says
they
it's
like
a
to
serious
intimidate you.
crime that could be punishable by this fine and this jail term.
They do that for
Because they
intimidation.
like to intimidate you, Dan.
They do all that for just intimidation.
The same reason why they say that there's an Interpol warning.
Yeah,
It's
but
not
they've
just a
thrown
federal crime, it's an
ladies in
international
jail.
crime.
They've
They
thrown
like-
people in jail to make an example and so
I've
forth.
never even
They've done it.
Is Interpol like an IT thing? I mean, I've never seen like an Interpol officer. You know what I mean?
It's because there is no such thing as an Interpol officer.
That'd be a badge, huh? I can go anywhere, buddy. I'm finding you.
Well, I still feel this problem is still brought on by Google by not fully educating the public. I still feel that this all goes back to public education. If everybody was educated on how glass works, the whole 9 yards, we wouldn't run into all these weird scenarios, whether it's getting pulled over.
Kadeaus, what more do you want Google to do? They've got
But wait.
15,000 people who are by hand educating people.
But
They've
wait,
published
back up a
multiple
little bit.
videos.
But
They've
back
done
up.
tons and tons of stuff. What do you want them to do? Go into the schools? Oh,
But-
then you're going to get people like Craig talking about how they're showing up in our schools.
Back up a little bit. This is probably extremely rare that somebody is hassled for recording a movie with glass. Probably the vast majority of the people that are hassled are recording the movie with a cell phone. Okay, the only reason we heard about this and we're talking about this is because it was a glass hole and it made news, right? So it's a fringe thing.
I'm getting tired of this derogative. Let's keep using.
I have a question for
I don't
Kadeaus
mind
when
using
you're done.
glass hole, but use it against the people correctly. This guy, at least on the surface, doesn't seem like one.
Okay, so he's a decent guy using glass, and it's a rare occurrence, and yes, it's a story because of what it is. But the point is, most people that are hassled for recording or not recording in a movie theater, whatever the case may be, are probably holding up a cell phone, not Google Glass.
Probably.
Actually,
and
for a
Kadeaus,
cell phone, that's totally impractical. It would usually be a camcorder.
Handycam, yeah.
Something.
Can I ask Kadeaus a question?
Yeah, I'm listening.
Is that the Costco Del Monte fruit bowl behind
oh,
you?
good freaking Lord.
I'm just curious because I'm. Is that from
Because
Costco?
you're hungry.
This
Look
is
at that
this
squirrel.
is why are we talking about this?
Is
We
it
can
from
say-
Costco?
This
Is
is
that?
Dan.
I swear to God, it looks like
watching
it.
this show.
Then I'll
He's
shut up
got
and let
ADD.
you. Is that a
Dan
Costco fruit
forgets that
bowl?
we're in a hangout. He still thinks we're in a hangout.
Is it a Costco fruit bowl? It
No,
looks like it.
we'll talk about it on the end.
Craig, doesn't it look like that $10.99 fruit bowl at Costco?
That's for the 6 hour, Dan.
Kadeaus, don't worry, because we've got 8 hours this time. For the
Yeah, that's
show.
right. That's right.
We're down to
So-
6.5.
But what
So
was
we
your
can-
question,
So
Alan?
we can get sidetracked here and there and not have a problem.
All right, go ahead. Alan and Kadeaus, duke it out.
No, so one of the things I would point out is that, again, according to this person's story,
Right.
he's been to the theater multiple times wearing glass.
Right.
He had talked to many of the ticket takers, many of the other people many of the other theater employees about glass. So he was educating people. He was an explorer who was doing his part to educate them, and yet he still apparently got. I'm going to at least go on the presumption that some of his story is true.
Okay.
I see Peter nodding his head no. But on the assumption that
No,
something
you're right.
happened,
I believe portions of the story are true, but I believe he was led to believe that people were representing organizations that they weren't.
Gotcha.
I think this is a case of a movie theater assistant manager and a bunch of overzealous mall cops overstepping their bounds. I think that's what this is. And I do think ICE was called, but I think erroneously.
But I agree with you on that, Peter, only because I just don't see somebody walking up and snatching glass off my face if there was some form of an authority. And I actually wrote a post about it. I mean, that would have if it was me, we'd be talking about a whole nother story. We would have tore the whole theater up if that was me. You don't walk up and snatch something off my face. I don't care who you are. You're not gonna act like that.
Today you're exactly right, and I can recount. We had an opportunity where a couple of glass explorers and I were meeting up at a local restaurant, and a DEA agent met with one of the explorers. He bumped into him, of all places, in the men's bathroom, and started asking him questions. And my colleague said, whoa, I don't care who you are. We're not going to talk about this in the bathroom. So they came back out to the table, and the DEA agent was very, very kind in dealing with the whole matter and trying to learn more about the technology. And I just don't believe anybody in any sort of law enforcement capacity, beyond somebody that works in a small town that shouldn't have the job that they have, would do anything in the manner that was described by this story. The fact that I've emailed the MPAA, AMC, and ICE and have received no response only helps to validate my claim.
I can tell you, I've been stonewalled by the best of them. Peter, and understand the reason that they wanted to remove the device, according to the story, was that they were afraid. They didn't understand. Obviously, they didn't have a clue about the technology, because you can't really record a 2-hour movie with glass. Your face would melt, and the quality would suck. It would be the worst possible way to do it. And second of all, they were afraid that he would have some kind of, button to delete and cover up his crime. That's why they wanted to get the evidence. So go ahead.
So Alan, put that question back up. That's exactly what I'm saying.
I will in a second. Let me just answer Dan. See, to me, that's the biggest hole in my mind, is that these people who are, at least in theory, responsible for knowing everything there is to know about the latest ways of
please. These are law enforcement. These are movie theater cops. I mean, lowest on the totem pole.
Right, and that's why I doubt that these were really federal agents, that these were guys who were exceeding their pay grade. But tied to that, Kevin Bryan says, why are you doubting this account? You act as if people don't exceed their authority every day. And I think that's what happened here, is that a bunch of, as Peter puts it, mall cops were exceeding their authority.
They thought the guy was guilty. He was wearing this crazy gadget to them, right? And they were convinced he was guilty. And they did what they always do. They try to intimidate to get you to confess, which usually works, because most people that they, pick up for shoplifting or what have you are guilty. They got them on camera, and they sit there and do the browbeating, and it works.
I agree.
An hour on it.
What you guys are missing here is what I went to college for, which was journalism. And our biggest failure here is that nobody, not even Business Insider, has gone to any length to validate anything other than an erroneous email that turned up in the comments on an Android Authority blog post that are allegedly from somebody from ICE. If anybody from any of those organizations didn't want this to be out there as a big scare tactic, which is all it is, they would have validated or refuted these claims. And the fact that they haven't is proof to me that this fear-mongering is exactly what they want. What I'm disappointed in is the failure of journalism.
Big shock there. Sorry.
Yeah, really. I mean,
he is the ICE spokesman.
Such thing as journalism anymore?
Well, maybe there's not. Maybe
okay. Before we get off on that one, I've got a bunch of questions. Cy just asked a great one, and it's being cut off here. He's quoting the Steve Mann Paris McDonald's incident, where supposedly Steve Mann was attacked in a Paris McDonald's. For those of you who don't know who Steve Mann is, he's considered the father of wearable computing. He's been, or the cyborg. He's been experimenting with wearable computing for a couple of decades now. Supposedly in, I forget the year, I apologize, Cy can correct me. He was visiting a Paris McDonald's wearing his devices, and he was beat up and kicked out with people trying to rip it off of his face. And his devices weren't glass; they were actually much more embedded. So we do see that there are people who are paranoid about this stuff, who will overreact to it, and there's yet and that's why at least a number of people in the glass community are so ready to believe that this was on some level real. Again, whether or not it was really the feds, that's questionable. I think my big question in all of this is, okay, I've worn glass to 2 movie theaters and 2 drive-ins so far. The drive-in ones, I've been happy. I've been able to take them off, leave them in my bag. One of the movie theaters that I went to, I was going to a preview, and I knew they were going to have issues with glass, as well as with any cell phone, potentially. So I made sure to take it off before the movie started, and they still questioned me about it. The other one, I wore glass the entire time and wasn't harassed, but I'm now wondering, I'm not going to change my habits, probably. Maybe if all I'm doing is going to a movie theater, I will take it off and not bring it into the theater. But if I'm going to a movie theater as part of wandering around a mall, I'm going to keep it on probably. What do I do? What is the right thing to do if somebody pulls me out of my seat?
Now, generally, I'll wear it to the movie theater. I'll wear it all the way up to when I sit down. But when the movie starts, I take it off, and I'm just taking it off specifically because, I don't know, it's just up there. I don't know why I take it off. I'm just always taking it off while the movie's played.
But even if you just hold it in your lap, or do you put it away in the bag?
I got something that I put it in. So.
Okay, even though just bringing it in, I'm concerned that somebody is going to say or do something, and I'm curious to know, and this is a post that I've been meaning to make all week, I'll probably make it on Monday, is what is the right thing to do in that circumstance? And I see the crowd falls silent. Peter, you have any thoughts on the right way to deal with a Fed or a mole cop?
If they were approaching me asking about the device or making an allegation about the device?
Yeah, if they pull me out of my seat and bring me into an office.
Well, first of all, if they're going to pull me out of the seat, okay, first of all, as a citizen of this country, I would never want to ruin, my fellow citizens' enjoyment of any entertainment. So I would certainly want to encourage the discussion to take place outside of the theater. So I'd be happy to get up, get out of my chair, go out, and say, how can I help you? We need you to follow us and talk.
Okay,
let me just say that this is not just a movie theater issue. I could see this playing out. For example, Alan, if you're got a girlfriend and you walk into Victoria's Secret and you're wearing glass, you're in the mall and you decide to buy a gift for your wife or girlfriend, and you're walking through Victoria's Secret, and maybe the security guard in Victoria's Secret is suspicious that you're secretly filming the women in Victoria's Secret, right?
Well, Dan,
this could happen in a number of
more like the Gucci store where they follow you every which way you go.
Well, so no, you guys all have an interesting point. Is it doesn't really matter what the context is. The first thing you have to realize is the one thing you don't want to do in any situation with authority is undermine their authority. So the first thing you're going to do is you're probably going to answer some questions contrary to the way they want them to be answered. The best way you can do that is privately, where you're not going to embarrass them in front of anyone else. So
Boy, I got a different approach, Peter. I would say, screw you. I'm not saying a damn thing to you. I want your supervisor's name, and I'd get them on the phone immediately. I've done it a million times.
That's where you would get their adrenaline pumping, and that's where they're going to
I don't have a problem with that. I've done that before.
Okay.
I filed 2 complaints
I'm just telling you.
in this town. I was pulled over without reason, and I filed a complaint both times. I wasn't charged with anything. And I immediately went directly to the police station. I filled out a complaint, and I followed it through. I went to the town manager.
I'm just telling you,
I have no problem doing that. I'm not afraid
There's
of these assholes.
a difference between the right thing to do and the best thing to do. And I think the best thing for anyone to do, any private citizen, when you find yourself in that situation, if you can safely remove yourself from being in front of many others.
But to be grilled for 3 hours in the office is a bit over the top.
Dan, hang on.
You're talking about allegations again.
Right. We weren't there. We didn't see it. It's the victim's version, or
right.
the
and that's why I'm trying to explore what we should
so we don't
be doing.
know. There was ironically, there was no video of this, unfortunately.
Well, if it was off, there wouldn't be. So Peter, the general attitude that I've heard, the general advice that I've heard a number of people give about when dealing with mall cops or law enforcement or anyone pretending to be in that position of authority, is to basically be extremely polite, extremely courteous, agree, remove yourself from the situation, go to the private office, courteously ask for a business card in their name, and refuse to say anything.
Right, that's one way you can handle it. But you're asking me, so let's explore this hypothetical. I'm in a public situation, and somebody has taken offense to me wearing glass, and they want to confront me about it. So first thing I want to do to help lower their blood pressure and diffuse the situation, and I think if anybody here is going to agree with me on this, it's going to be Michael Banks, is to go somewhere private where they don't feel threatened by the perception of other people to continue the conversation there.
And I'll agree with you completely on that point.
What happens from there? It depends on the hypothetical. So, if it's we really don't appreciate you being in there and recording women, or this, that, or the other. If they have a preconceived notion of what I'm doing, the only way I can dispel that would be to show them the history of what I'm doing, to familiarize them with the device, or if I realize there's just no way. I mean, it's really about how you can decipher the climate and what's going on, and what you think is going to happen next. But you're right. If you think there's no way out, there's no way you can, explain the device. If it's just an ignorance issue, then I think your best thing to do. No, go ahead, Kadeaus.
Well, I agree with the majority of what you're saying, but for the most part, and maybe just because of where I grew up and stuff, generally you don't want to remove yourself from the public. You want people to see what happens. Like, granted, you see, because then you remove yourself. Now you're in this private room and they beating the life out of you. Like, you don't. We didn't even know if this was feds or not. So you don't want to remove yourself from public eye. But so I wouldn't go to an office necessarily, but I would go out in the lobby. Like, we could talk in the lobby, talking about the movie theater.
Exactly. No, exactly right. And it would be the same thing if you were at Victoria's Secret. Hey, why don't we have this conversation out in the lobby? It can be in the view of other people, but remove yourself from whatever situation where you were offending others. No, I totally agree with you on that. But that's the other thing, is it's kind of the reverse psychology of that, is they want, while they have the adrenaline pumping, while they're hot on the case, to take care of it right there. If you diffuse the situation, add time to it, and allow them to rethink what they're about to do, I think you're totally going to change the outcome of it. That's just my thought. I've worked on both sides of it. So
You're assuming these are normal people.
I'm assuming these are normal, overzealous mall cops that won't know what to do when they realize that that your rights and they're not law enforcement.
Well, it took these morons 3 hours, according to the story, to figure it out. And again, ICE, the head spokesman, confirmed the incident, allegedly, according to this report, and they're not responding to your inquiries and others because it shows how stupid some of these guys are. And who wants to? They're not under any obligation to respond to you, and so by responding to you, they're just, prolonging the story. They want it to go away. And
they don't want it to go away.
If this were largely inaccurate, I suspect that they would have come out and blown holes in the story, but they haven't done that.
Not at all. Not at all. No, I believe the reason nobody will come out and make an official statement from any of those three organizations is that they appreciate the press this has brought, and they think this is a step in the right direction for protection of intellectual property.
I think a lot of it goes to what Kadeaus pointed to, and I would add to this, what Kadeaus said was that Google's done a poor job educating the public about what glass can and cannot do, and that
that's why they've charged people like me $1,500 to go do the work for them.
Oh yeah, and to answer your question,
obviously it hasn't worked.
And to answer your question on that, Alan, I feel that, and again, I'm in the program, but I feel that the route that the program took or has taken so far, I wish it would have went differently, only because of public perception, only because of all the stuff that's happened, whether it's getting pulled over, just all the things that's happened is because of poor education on the public. They don't know what Google. A lady thought I could see her social security number next to her head, and I had to let her wear it to see that it's not her social security number. I don't see her kids, her address.
Two points here. The first is a comment from Kevin Bryan talking about the theater problem's not about education. It's about people who detain the patron, don't care about being educated. They want to intimidate. Okay, that's one. But I think the second question then goes to, okay, what could Google have done differently? Do they do a massive, viral campaign? Well, they tried doing that. That's been part of what they've been doing is this massive viral word of mouth, share our video type campaign. We've seen that.
Here's what they
Honestly,
do, Alan. Here's
I
what they
would
do.
say-
And I just told them this in the feedback, is they were asking, they just sent a survey out to a certain number of Glass Explorers asking, and there's one question on there about how often do you let people try on glass? One of the biggest things of being a Glass Explorer and educating is allowing people to try it on, to see it firsthand. Well, my biggest hesitation as an investor that spends $1,500 of my own hard-earned cash on their product to go out and evangelize it is every time I take it off my face and hand it to somebody else, I'm taking a risk. I would like to see something from Google that says, hey, we really want you to help the public perception of this. If you suffer any loss from allowing somebody else to try on glass, we'll send you another pair for free.
Good luck with that one.
Yeah. But that's one way they could solve it. That's just an idea.
Wait a minute, guys, just as an aside, honestly, the movie theater has every right to say that somebody cannot wear that in their movie theater.
Of course.
Right, but they had 3 opportunities to do that before the movie started.
But also he had never. But they hadn't done that though. They had. He'd worn it previously. Employees had asked him, "Oh, that's so cool. Let me see it," and he'd explain it to them, and they would enthusiastically like, "Oh, that's so cool." So there was no sign posted. It's like saying, it's like getting arrested because you legally had a concealed weapon in a movie theater when there was no sign or any public pronouncement as you enter. You have to have a sign up, no concealed weapons.
You're going down a weird road on that one. But Jody makes an excellent point, and Jody, welcome to the show this evening. I'm glad you showed up for this topic. I was hoping you'd be here
Jody.
For it.
Did you notice Kadeaus has Costco fruit? I don't know if you noticed that, Jody. Go ahead.
What is it?
I'm trolling Kadeaus now.
But Jody, my concern here, I guess my question to you on this would be, do you wear a necklace when you go to the theater?
I'm not recording anything with a necklace.
I'm not recording anything with glass.
They don't know that. It's basically.
They don't know that they're not recording anything with your neck. You're not recording anything with your
Alan,
necklace.
that's a ridiculous argument, and you know it.
No, it's not.
But Jody, have you ever tried recording it?
I wish it was a ridiculous argument, but it's not.
It is a ridiculous argument.
No, it is not at all.
No, because
one will
be inconspicuous. Glass is very conspicuous. Kadeaus offered to put me in the program. And Jody, just to agree with you, Kadeaus offered to put me in the program, and I turned him down because I wouldn't want to walk in public because of this kind of thing. It's not there yet. It looks like 7 of 9. You've got this freaking Borg implant on your glass. It's too conspicuous. It needs to be more subtle.
And honestly, it's become a déclassé thing. People are really objecting to it. I think it's like, we're the explorers. You know what? It's not cool anymore. People don't think it's cool.
Alan, first rant of the night. Go ahead, Alan.
Can I reply to Dan? Dan, so you're saying that it would be better if I was wearing an inconspicuous device that recorded the movie.
That's exactly what I was going to ask.
But before he gets on to that, what about
would have been more effective?
Comment that they're not cool anymore, Alan?
No,
are
we'll
you
get to that in a minute. I'm not trying to dodge it.
That they're not cool anymore?
I'm not trying to dodge that question from Jody. I'll respond to that in a minute. I want to get to Dan's point, though. Dan just said that these devices are too conspicuous, and because they're too conspicuous, they are too effective at recording a movie.
No, I'm saying it's like the guy, it's like Craig when he had this gigantic phone that was like walking around with a freaking refrigerator, and he was like, look how cool I am, I have my phone, right? And he actually made money from CNN once, so good for him. But it's kind of like
I think
the early phones. It's a prototype device. It's a bulky
theater with a video camera. That's conspicuous. If you walk into a movie theater wearing the glass, it's conspicuous. If you have a concealed something or other, it's not conspicuous.
So you're saying So you're saying that
is it legal? No.
So Jody, you're saying that it's better to walk in with an inconspicuous camera. That's okay. But walking in with something that is designed to be seen is not okay.
I didn't say it's okay to walk in with a concealed camera. What I said is, if you have a concealed camera, it's concealed. Duh. They don't see it, so they're not going to say anything. But if you're walking in with something on your face, it's like recently there was a case here where a teacher at a local school was gay, or he is gay. And when they finally legalized gay marriage and he got married and he announced that he was getting married, they fired him. They all knew he was gay before, but when he got married, suddenly it was in their faces. It's the same thing. It's in their face.
Literally.
It's literally in my face, but that's another story. But I mean, I get it. Let me put it this way. I understand and agree with the theater's right to deny access to somebody if they are concerned about copyright violations, if they're concerned about disrupting other patrons. I entirely understand that and agree with it. My concern, though, is they seem to be picking a technology that is poorly designed to break copyright and is designed to be extremely obvious when I'm doing so, and not going after technology that is designed to be concealed and violate the copyright. Glass is designed to make sure that if you're recording, the people around you know that you're recording.
But does it
I've
light
got
it
a
up
point
or
I want to
something?
make
Blink?
here.
Yeah,
Can I make a point here?
Especially if you're sitting in the dark, and if you're sitting in the dark, your whole eyeball is lit up. So it's not one of those things where you're doing it and nobody knows. And that's the question that I always ask when I run into people that are a little scared. Are you more worried about the person that's saying, I have a camera? Or are you worried about the person that's got the camera in their pocket or is attached to a pole and is going under dresses? Like, you should be more concerned about those cameras and not the one where the person is like, I have a camera. I mean, it's very obvious that it's a camera.
I want to make a point. I want to make a point really quick. So while I was on the phone, this was happening.
Okay, so you surreptitiously took my picture.
No, I was recording video of the whole conversation while I was on the phone.
Okay.
Good for you.
But to anybody watching, I was just having a
hours.
conversation on the phone. So, I mean, my point is, there's so many more practical ways to record video, record audio. I mean, it's a public perception problem is all it is. People
I think it's both. I think you've got a point. I think it is a perception problem. And I think, unfortunately, the public doesn't like it. And I think partially because it came out with a snob appeal.
Wait a minute now, back up. It is not a problem. This was an isolated incident. Somebody was harassed by some idiots.
No, it's not isolated, Craig.
It's not isolated, Craig.
99.9999999% of anybody is not going to be affected by this. It is a non-issue.
Craig, Jody's point is that it's bigger than this one issue.
People being thrown out of restaurants. People being pulled over for driving with them on.
I think
Now,
it's
wait a minute. Now, wait a minute.
It's very rare for any of these things to happen. It's very rare.
Actually, Craig, it's not
guys
that
are
rare,
all-
Craig, because I just had a conversation with an officer who pulled me over. So it's not rare that it happens.
In the overall scheme of things, it's rare. First of all, very few people even have.
No, wait a minute. Time out. Craig
Peter, go to
makes a
Pam.
good point. Yes, in terms of gross percentage, it is rare, but Jody is correct. It still is a public perception problem.
And also,
So
it's
you're
important
okay.
to
I don't
know.
even know what glass is.
Look, this is a
People have never
prototype.
even heard of glass.
This is a prototype device.
Hello.
It's a prototype device. Pam, go ahead, and Pam gets the last word because I'm going to ask Pam to intro the next topic, as only Pam can. Pam, go ahead, give me your last words. But my thought is, this is, I mean, people are ignorant of it. There are going to be issues like this. This is a prototype device, and it's awkward, it's big, and Google's done a poor job defining it. So what do you think, Pam? And then
it's not just Google. Anytime a new technology comes online, okay, the government, the authorities, the general public are always ignorant, uninformed, and a little fearful of it. And it's going to take time. That's all there is to it. It's going to take time. And Kadeaus and Peter and Alan, I'm really sorry that it's going to take time. There's no way around it. And it's not Google's fault. It's just the way it is.
Wait a minute now.
Real
Alan,
quick, we got to move. Go ahead, Craig.
Can you answer the question as to whether or not they're still cool or not? Because I thought they were still cool.
I get hit on.
I got it.
Let me put it this way. We have this comment from Rich saying, "Please listen to Alan. He's right. He's always right." And yeah.
Well, we already knew that.
All right, so
and if you don't believe Alan, you can ask Alan.
So I know.
No, seriously, I'm serious about this.
Real quick.
When you're out in public with these things, are they still perceived as being cool?
I get more phone numbers wearing those than I ever got in my life.
Okay, so that's a yes from Peter. What about you, Alan?
I'm still getting questions from random people on the street who are interested, and who, ranging from kids who are 6 to, my dry cleaner, who's, I don't even want to think what her age might be. But yeah, there's still a lot of public interest that think these things are cool.
So they're not approaching
even the police officer that pulled me over put them on and thought they were cool. So
okay, they're not approaching you in a way that they think they're bad, in a negative way. It's a positive.
But Craig, here's the problem: the people who would think that they're bad would go in the other direction from me. They're the ones who are looking at me out of the corner of their eye, wondering what the hell this is.
They might sneer at you, or they might
and I have to tell you, if I met Peter or Kadeaus or Alan in person and they were wearing glass, I would ask them, "Please don't take my image without my permission."
But Pam,
I actually had a meeting
you're
with
kind
somebody.
of paranoid about stuff like that.
But
okay, so
I wouldn't ask them to take it off, and I wouldn't prevent them from using it.
I mean, I would give them $10 if they'd take my picture with them.
I'm okay with them taking my picture as long as it's in a flattering way. No, I don't want that. The reason I got pissed off last week was because, I just know that when that capture was done, I was all, I don't want that to be out there.
That was actually Peter who did that. Okay, yeah. So anyways, all right. So let's talk about speaking of glass. Topic transition here. I'm going to ask Pam to introduce. Pam's our new co-host. I have 2 co-hosts now, Alan and Pam Adger in Menifee, California, where basically it's like an inferno. So there's a new app for glass available. So why don't you tell us about this? Oh my God!
Make this app?
I did not make this app.
Have you tried it?
I don't have it.
This would this tell me would this be the first app you downloaded?
Have my glass, I guess.
I don't have this app because I don't have glass. However,
you could have used this during the
awesome.
Gmail outage. You could have used this during the great Google outage of 2014. Right?
Oh, the link is bad. Holy crap.
You can summarize it in your own way, which will be epic anyway.
Oh, here it is. Okay, so it's the title of the article, "Sex with Glass App Lets You See from Your Peer's Point of View." So,
more detail, Pam. Cool. More detail.
I'm guessing that both parties have to have glass, because how else would you see from their point of view? But I guess the app allows you to kind of connect with your partner's
I've never seen Pam unable to speak before.
and kind of watch. I mean, I'm just thinking.
You can see the other person's perspective while you're doing naughty stuff.
Yeah.
Wearing
so
glass. I guess it could be used remotely. It could be used
watch
remotely, I suspect. I don't know.
You could watch yourself responding to sex.
Now, the real question, Pam, is whether Peter, Kadeaus, and Alan have obtained this app and tested it yet.
I've got no comment on the app, but I would point out that we already have video hangouts.
Yeah, but video. So here's the thing. Yeah, let me demonstrate.
Oh my God! Oh my God!
Okay. See, I'm holding my 17-inch laptop, right? Kind of difficult to be doing that.
Well, no.
Okay, but we've already.
We have video hangouts for glass.
But not only that, we already have a glass that does that. It's called a mirror.
That's what I said.
I don't understand why we need an app for this.
That's what I said.
And I don't understand that. Secondly, why would I? Never mind.
Okay,
Because one of the features of this app is
here's
it'll
the
record
reason.
it too.
Because I'm extremely nearsighted, right? And a mirror on the ceiling is just too effing far away for me
All right,
to
that's
see
enough.
anything.
I'm good. I'm not in this conversation.
Pam,
I don't know if Kadeaus is aware of Pam's wild side.
Pam, you're not
yes,
willing
he
to wear
is.
your regular glasses?
He's followed me for a long time.
Wait, Pam, you're not willing to wear your regular glasses, but you are willing to wear Google Glass so that you can see your partner.
Yeah, but so there's a difference. So I can have a pair of binoculars and it can see something from far away, right? But the resolution, like my partner is what 2 feet away at the very most, and that's if I've got my hands on his shoulders or whatever. You know,
Well,
otherwise
your
he's
partner's got 17 inches. I wouldn't worry about
Yeah.
So, you know, the mirror's on the ceiling. My ceilings are 14 feet or 9 feet or 11 feet or whatever. That's that's quite a ways, you know. So, yeah, I think glass is made for porn. I'm telling you, I think glass
You know,
is
they
made
do
for
make
porn.
concave mirrors, right?
What?
They do make concave mirrors, just so you know.
Right.
Yeah,
that's
but
what I'm
I
saying.
just
You
think
They also make video cameras, Pam.
yeah, but you know, or that what's that GoPro? Is that little camera
Yeah.
that sits on your head or whatever? You know, those things are made for porn. You know, and I think that the app is a good one. It absolutely is. And if you're into critiquing yourself, it's much better.
I see Jody shaking her head now. Jody.
Yeah, we are still wearing glasses things. I mean,
I've had sex with my glasses on.
Okay.
It's less intrusive than wearing a GoPro.
It doesn't interfere with anything, Jody. It doesn't strap around my boobs or anything. You know,
This is getting into the TMI category.
It's the TNA, right?
That's the whole point of the app. All right, so Alan and Kadeaus and Peter are all refusing to confirm it. Actually, they're all not talking because they're downloading the app.
Here's the thing. Alan said it. Alan
They're
said it.
currently
We already have
downloading the
video
app.
hangouts. What's the point of this app? We already have video hangouts. It's superfluous.
Unfortunately, I have the cotton version of glass, so I make sure that stays clean at all times.
You
So,
notice,
yeah.
just to clarify, Pam, you notice we've gotten 3 non-denial denials. From,
Yeah, I know.
None of them have said, no, I haven't downloaded it. They just said, why would I need this, right?
No, I haven't downloaded.
This
Why
is
would I?
along the lines of, I won't dignify that question with a response. That's not a denial, right? It's a non-denial denial.
You
That's an
know,
outrageous charge.
I'm just waiting for the first peen video. Like the first, you know, I get peen pics all the time. It's like I'm just waiting for the first.
Apparently, you're on the wrong mailing list because I am sure they are out there. we have this comment from ICJ. Wow. No, really. Wow.
In full high definition.
Go, Jody.
Does anyone know what time the Hangouts 10 show starts and how we can find out?
Unfortunately, he's gone at the moment.
Yeah,
He's going to buy glass right now.
Darn.
He's
Do you
probably
think
racing
glass
back
when pick it up?
from his urinal to the chair.
I think they want to know when Android Week is.
I think that's Monday at 9 p.m. Eastern, 6 p.m. Pacific on Google Plus and YouTube Live. So how was Tech Webcast tonight,
It
Jody?
was good. It was good.
What'd
We
y'all
had if I can remember say his name correctly, Alexander Karatov, I think it is. He he's a mobile app developer, and he worked on Just Me and Chance and several other, a lot of different mobile apps. Interesting.
And then Kadeaus, tap your mic real quick so we can get a wide shot of that fruit bowl from Costco there.
He got a fruit bowl from Costco?
He denies it. He
What you
won't
got
confirm
there?
or deny.
Oh, I see it. Yep.
That's totally that $10.99 fruit bowl from Costco. Alan, you had a comment you wanted to put up?
Kevin Bryan had a question from Kadeaus because, there's no point in actually sticking to any topic around here. Google Fiber is going to Grandview, Missouri. Do you know anything about what kind of town that is? Suburb, rural, separate city, quick sign-ups, laggards, who knows, who cares? What's the deal with Missouri? Sorry.
Grandview, Missouri used to be really nice suburbs when I was in second grade. Trying to think of the best way to say it. It's not what it used to be at all. It's another really not good town.
It's up and coming, right?
You mean going down? It's not going the other direction. So, so it's still one of those areas. It's not as bad as the areas that they took. My grandmother actually lives in that city, so she'll be able to sign up for Google Fiber, and that's going to take an active guy to get her to switch. So, but yeah.
Now, is this
He's still on net zero, right?
There have been a couple different things, Kadeaus, a couple different scenarios for this. They are. Alan, hang on. Don't touch anything on the dock. I'm going to put this in here. Okay. So is this a new rollout, or are they buying an existing system or something in between, or what's the deal?
The majority of the areas, now Grandview is actually interesting because AT&T Uverse is throughout some parts of Grandview. I remember Google didn't actually lay, and I've had people debate with me on this, but from my understanding, Google actually didn't lay fiber in Kansas City. They bought a lot of existing fiber that AT&T refused to buy. So, but in Grandview, AT&T Uverse is also out there, so that may be newly laid fiber. And same with all the suburbs that's coming in 2015 and 2016, they're having to lay new fiber for that. But for the majority parts of Kansas City, Missouri and Kansas, both sides of the state line, it wasn't, to my understanding, it was fiber that was already under the city that was being bought and used.
So they're going for the low-hanging fruit, if you will. The low-hanging Costco fruit. Go ahead, Alan.
Looking quickly at the Google Fiber page, Grandview, Missouri is listed as coming next. There are still 2 cities before it, Fairway, Kansas, and Gladstone, Missouri, which are still listed as coming next. And those are after the Kansas cities themselves. So.
Right. Yeah, you're starting to move outward.
Yeah, I'm sure, it's listed as going to Grandview, but it's not listed as how quickly it's going to Grandview.
I can ask my grandmother, or I'll have my grandmother tell me when they knock on the door. So, because that's what they do. They mail a postcard, then they knock on the door. They send the ambassadors out.
They actually have in-person sales people for glass? For fiber?
No, not for glass. For a while, they had ambassadors going door to door to try to convince people to sign up, and paid a little $10 for the pre-registration.
I see you've eaten over half of your fruit bowl.
Oh my God.
Kadeaus, you are not going to live that down for, at least another 5 episodes or hours, whatever comes
Probably.
It looks good, though.
This is an initiation process all the new hosts or panel goes through. Okay, so any other thoughts on the arrival of Google Fiber in Grandview, Missouri? Okay, hearing none. What's this the latest glass promo, Alan? What's this about?
Sure, this was one that somebody added to the document earlier, and I moved it into this place. Basically, Google's been releasing videos every so often, profiling how some explorers are actually using glass, besides, taking pictures of their lunch or of, their fruit bowl or whatever. In the one that was most recently released, it featured a firefighter who is working on some glassware to alert him for your basic fire alarms that are coming out, provide information that helps him do his job. And I think it's a great focus, not just about, oh, hey, I can take videos, I can take pictures, I can, what else can I do?
Vignettes.
Vignettes. It starts to focus on, okay, how do I use it? Why would I want to use it? What things can I do with it that are important to me? So I think this was a pretty good video kind of outlining both what can be done now and where they, being an explorer or, explorers in general, are trying to take it next. And I think it's a really good and important video, and it's part of their education effort, I think, tying back a little bit to what we were discussing earlier. Has anybody else seen the video? Because I know it was making the rounds of Google Plus a lot this week. I'm curious if anybody else saw it and what they think of it.
I mean,
Jody,
I've seen
have
it
you
pop
seen it?
up. I never watched it.
Okay, Peter, Jody, have you seen it? So kind of outline. Did we lose Jody? Did we lose me again?
No, I'm here. I
You're
can
here.
see it, Alan. No comment.
No comment. Okay. Kadeaus, have you seen it?
I've seen it. No comment.
No comment.
But
Am I
you
the
know,
only one that is vaguely interested in the fact that they're doing this?
Well,
I
no,
think because
I'll comment on
I
what
like
you were talking about, though, Alan.
I just
Both
tried
of
to
you?
post it. I can't post it. You can't. I thought you could put links in YouTube comments now. It'd be.
You're thinking YouTube comments, not YouTube comments. Peter, what did you say?
No, I mean, I'll comment on what you were talking about before about creating glassware and, doing things other than taking pictures and video. And I think one of the biggest hesitations I have as a glass user is coming up with a concept that would outweigh the cost of the battery drain and the fact that you can't actually run the display for more than 10 or 15 minutes at a time. And I think the biggest hurdle I have trying to come up with appropriate use cases in effective glassware is in knowing that anything I do that's going to cause projection on the screen or use a lot of Bluetooth data is that it's going to go against the amount of battery life I have. And knowing that I have a limited amount of battery, I've really been racking my brain for the 2 months that I've had the device, trying to think of what kind of application or program could I use that would actually be feasible to last for a full day at work.
So
and that's the biggest problem
there's
I'm
an
having.
option. There's an option, right? In the 80s, they had these battery packs that you could just put on your shoulder, right? So you could just get like a big old 9-volt, and...
But I think that's why they were trying to push it in the cloud, is what they thought. It's what I thought.
Right.
I think that's why they started off by saying everything needs to be in the cloud before they started letting you do APKs and stuff.
Exactly, and I think you raised some good questions though, Peter. Is what can you do with it? One of the examples I like to give is I don't actually use the GPS on it all that often. I know it's one of the apps that everyone talks about.
Yeah, I love it.
I don't use it all that often because most of the places I go, I know where I'm going. But for me, one of the things I use my phone's GPS for is to tell me how long it will take me to get there. And keep me updated on a 2-hour or a 4-hour trip, how far along I am, how much there really is to go, and that gives me, does that mean there's a traffic jam along the way? That's something that I can easily incorporate in a piece of glassware, something that will alert me when there's a tie-up up ahead, something that will alert me that the fact that this trip that normally takes 30 minutes from the point that I'm at is now going to take me 45 minutes.
Why don't they integrate it?
You're talking about contextual computing, and I think that's huge, and I think that's...
My beautiful Note 3 does that.
But
Yeah,
here's the
that's
thing,
what we
Pam.
have.
Pam, I ran my phone using Google Maps' GPS for 2 hours today, and it drained the phone's battery 75%.
Seriously?
It
My
does.
Note 3 will last a lot longer than that.
Running GPS the entire
wait
time.
a minute. Back to what Alan was talking about. You're
does
talking
drain it.
about contextual computing.
Yes,
That's amazing, and that's what Glass does well. And as a device, I think it's the best interface to have. But then you need to think outside of app and think more of a whole array of apps.
Yes.
I'm going to need 50 apps. They're going to tell me 50 different types of information when I needed that information before I asked for the information.
And here's the thing,
So
Peter,
that app development on a whole new level.
I would actually say that no, we shouldn't be thinking about apps. We should be thinking about what information you want and when do you want it.
Well, I mean, that's just contextual computing, and Google's
Yes.
That's the next step of Google now.
That's
but
what
you're
Glass is designed for, and that's what we need to be thinking about and developing for.
You're not going to be playing Angry Birds or whatever, right? I mean,
You're not, and
not...
yet today they just released they just announced a 6-pack of cheesy little games.
Yeah, I was going to ask you, Alan, if you even played those. I haven't put a single game on mine.
I put Spellista on my Glass.
But I think that's a good thing, though.
and I think it's a terrible game.
I think
glass.
that's a good thing for public perception, is look at this innocent device, you can use it to occupy your time and play a fun game. Not, holy shit, look at this freaky thing that knows where you are and can predict what you want to do before you do it. Because the good stuff that it's going to do that's going to be helpful is the stuff that scares the shit out of the general public.
You have an interesting point there. And trust me, I'm very much on board with the fact that we need really, really good games for glass. My biggest concern, though, is they need to be games that illustrate why glass is good and different. And right now, just about every game that's out there can either be done using my cell phone or is a really bad example of how to use glass.
So here's a great idea, Alan. Let's take Ingress, Field Trip, marry them both together. I run Ingress on my phone, but when I don't have Ingress running and I'm walking up to a portal that I've never seen before, I get an alert on glass that says, hey, you're approaching a portal. Why don't you get your phone out? I pull my phone out, and then all of a sudden glass says, hey, by the way, you're standing in front of this really cool landmark, and if you want to learn more about its history, tap here and I'll read it aloud.
Yes. I think an Ingress-like game, not necessarily Ingress, but I think an Ingress-like game would be massive.
You want to talk about a battery drainer?
Well, and that's why
but it's not. The battery drain is in the transfer of data and in running of the projection screen. And if we're talking about GPS data that's coming from our phone, the phone would be telling glass when to activate. So glass really isn't doing any processing.
No, but what I'm saying, Ingress is a battery drain.
Ingress is a battery drain, and that's why I'm not saying Ingress. I'm saying an Ingress-like game.
But we're talking about a passive process to make you aware of new information that you weren't aware of before. So we're not talking about actively draining. We're talking about the phone pages glass to say, hey, you're at this really cool location. Let me tell you why. If you don't want to know why, we won't tell you why again. Just tap here.
Well, I mean, and Google already has the apps, you know, and there's also Roadside America. I mean, there's a ton of apps that do that.
I mean, there's Field Trip for glass. It's on there, and
Field Trip, yeah,
it works.
It's on the phone too.
Right. It started on the phone. They're the guys behind Ingress as well. Field Trip was their
first Niantic, yeah.
I took that off because it was. I live in a tourist trap town, and every single time I would drive on the same street, it would pop the thing up again. And I know that this is the 1786 building or whatever. You know, I've lived here, you know, for 20 years, and I don't need to be told every day or every week or whatever it is, you know, when it would pop up. So I ended up taking it off.
It didn't learn then, Dan, is what you're saying.
Yeah, it didn't realize, you know, he lives here within 10 miles of this thing and doesn't need to be reminded on a weekly basis.
That's not true contextual computing. Yeah, that's what needs to advance, and I think that's where Alan and I are.
Okay, so there's no segue here. I was going to say something witty, like speaking of contextual computing, but President Barack Obama is about to take a Hangout Tour after his State of the Union address. It is commonplace for presidents, after they deliver their annual State of the Union speech, to go on a road show. To typically they'll, you know, he's going to lay out some sort of agenda of what he wants to do in the next year, and then he'll go on a tour to promote that. So part of that tour, as he has done in the past with other issues, I don't know if he's done a specific State of the Union one. Maybe he has, but he's going to be doing. It's actually YouTube live streams utilizing Hangouts with folks, and I think that if you have, I think it's a contest to see if you can come up with a good question for him, then you can be invited. So that sort of thing. It's always exciting to see this product being utilized in that way. Jody, what do you think?
I think Barack Obama has done a very good job of utilizing technology, both in his campaign and also as president, so much more so than I think any other administration. I have to admire his ability to jump on the bandwagon. You know, it's interesting because the Department of Defense, FEMA, the Department of Energy, they're all using Hangouts. So.
Because they made the Department of Defense is actually using Google more now to cut down on costs.
I just saw Netflix after they did their earnings. They just did their earnings call, and the CEO of Netflix and several of the top folks did a Google Hangout as a way to do a video version after the Hangout after the earnings call. So we're seeing adoption because it's just in the past. I mean, you would go to Cisco or whatever, and it was a fortune to do this sort of thing, and Google's just giving it away. It's really something.
It's amazing, and I think more and more you're going to see municipalities using it, governments using it. I mean, think even just a few years ago, well, a year ago when we had Hurricane Sandy, to be able to broadcast and share information as it's happening, live streaming,
The smallest town, the absolute smallest little tiny town of 800 people, whatever, with the town council, they could have a hangout and with DSL, it would work. I mean, it would be ghetto, but it would work. And the citizens who can't make the meeting or are busy or raising kids or disabled or whatever, that most people don't attend municipal meetings. In fact, probably I doubt 1% do. They could use Hangouts for this. So I think this is cool. I mean, you can love or hate Obama. That's not really the point here. It's cool that the administration is addressing, is reaching out to the folks using this medium, and it's cool that they're doing it on this platform that we adore.
Effectively adopting technology.
Does it bother anybody on this panel how close this administration has been with Google over the last couple of years?
I mean, I don't think it's Google per se. I think this administration has been the most technically inclined in the more than previous years. I don't think it's just Google. I think it's general across the board, more technically savvy.
Expand on that, Peter, because it's not so much Google, it's technology firms in general, because their interests are aligned. Because I think the guy who ran Obama's entire web operation was actually one of the co-founders of Facebook.
Yeah. I don't have anything to elaborate on. It was just an interesting insight. I don't.
And I think that they brought into
Peter's going to be cussing up a storm in about 15 minutes. I can see it. He's going to pee first, grab another beer, another e-cig break, and then bam, done.
Go ahead, Jody.
I'm excited. Go ahead, Jody.
Sorry, I was muted. I just was going to say it sounds like Peter was coming up with a good conspiracy theory, and I was like, when you asked that question, Dan, like, okay, so what do you got? I'm like, I'm waiting to hear where the meat is. I mean, we've got all kinds of conspiracy in New Jersey. I'm ready for it. Come on, bring it.
No, I mean, I've got to tell you, the fact that Craig didn't jump in with something there is pretty astounding.
He was trying to troll Craig. That's what he was trying to get. I see what he was trying to get out of it.
Yeah, to say Craig's busy surfing porn.
I don't think Craig is as much participating with us as tolerating us at this point.
He's working on his hula.
He's multitasking right in some way. Pam may be right.
He's hooping down there.
He's ordering glass so he can
actually. I'm actually in a photography forum right now trying to order Google Glass. Working on it.
He's trying to get that porn app, I'm telling you.
Good point.
You're trying to order Google Glass? Did I hear you correctly?
I actually got a code for you, or anyone else.
I have no interest in anything Google. Tell you the
truth. He said he's on Google looking for ass.
Google. We got to get Craig a Nexus.
But Craig, the two O's in Google are like hula hoops and in tropical colors. So I could see
Google Hoops, right?
Good point. Hooping Live, by the way. Hooping Live is Monday nights at 9 p.m. Hooping Live.
Hooping Live.
Yeah, it's our arch nemesis because it's a direct competitor.
That's right.
As much as I adore Audrey,
I don't think the same audience would be watching.
See, I'm secretly trying to sabotage Hooping
actually,
Live.
Actually, the whole audience is watching Hooping Live. That's what they are watching.
No,
they're not watching the hoops.
See, I'm secretly trying to sabotage Hooping Live because we have the same demographic group. The hula hoopers and the Android fans are basically obviously the same.
That's right.
Folks, so it's a real direct competition.
It's called men.
Yes. And as a man, Alan, a fellow man, has a comment he'd like to put up. Go ahead, Alan.
The comment that I had was specifically targeted at Pam. asking not to tell us what drains batteries.
Oh my God, that's so awesome. Pam has had to mute herself apparently. All right. So anyway, President,
No comment.
when is this going to be? I guess we'll have a link under here. I try to post. I can't post links while we're going, but after we're done, the show's posted, the formal post. Then I'll have links to everything, and just Google like Obama Hangout 2014 state SOTU.
I posted all of the links in my share of this show. So if you want to actually go and click on the links that we're talking about tonight, you can go to my profile page, and it's the last couple of posts. I don't remember if I posted anything after the show, but I did. I copied everything from our agenda and posted everything. So.
Okay, cool. So next up is a Chrome issue, and I got a quick question. This is really a separate topic, Alan, but
our next topic is one that we won't get to for another half hour because I've got a completely unrelated question. Go ahead, Dan.
Apparently it's about.
Well, I was going to ask you about the Chrome tabs, which had the little microphone thing. I've seen it one time, but today I had that incident occur where I clicked on some link from Drudge or whatever, and some video started playing, and I couldn't find the tab, and I looked, and I couldn't see the little microphone icon, but I did see it yesterday or the day before. I think it was the day before because yesterday I was a zombie laying the paper out. But I saw it one time, but then today I couldn't see it. So is that like coming and going, or what's the deal there?
Part of it is that it's going to depend on how many tabs you already have open. If you've got a lot of tabs open and the tab is really, really tiny, so it just shows the icon?
It wasn't that. My tabs were only about 60% across, and I had some blank space for 40%.
It's also possible that, and this is actually almost related to the current issue, that the tab itself got opened in the background, so you couldn't find the tab because it wasn't actually one of the tabs. Or it could just be that, you screwed things up. I'm more inclined to believe the last of that.
Yeah, because
I think the NSA was watching and listening to you.
No, I think what it was, I was on Drudge Report, and I opened a couple things, and then I wanted to watch John Boehner on Leno and the Breitbart tab, because he always links to the most spammy site on earth is Breitbart.com.
Just being on the Drudge Report just puts you on all kinds of lists. There.
Oh, there's all kinds of crazy, awesome.
Yeah, but
man accidentally cuts arm off with homemade guillotine. I mean, there's great stories.
But Dan, it could have been related to the outage today. Maybe things aren't working the way they're supposed to.
Yeah, I have a flow chart here. So I have several questions. Was it a Windows machine that you were on?
Oh my God. Rare trolling comment from Craig the Troll.
Too easy, Craig. Too easy.
It was a machine from Costco, Craig.
Now my flow chart says that if you answered yes to that's the problem.
If you said no to that, there are several alternatives.
Yeah,
if you said yes, it goes right to the bottom.
The next question would be, were you drinking at the time?
Did you have fruit from Costco?
Yes.
Absolutely. We're going to do a check-in on Kadeaus here. Kadeaus, I see. Let's do the fruit bowl check. The bowl's gone. He's eating the entire bowl. Let me see the bowl.
The bowl and all. That gets him the fiber.
Not the Colorado bowl. Yeah, he's going to have a nice solid stool in the morning.
It's healthy.
Because he's eating an entire 4-pound.
He's a growing man.
All right. Okay. So anyway, once Peter came on, I knew we had gone away with the G rating, so we can.
You must be really going for the ratings tonight, getting all these heavy hitters in here.
Kadeaus.
All right. So anyway, Alan.
Okay.
Am I missing something? Maybe there's a private chat going on. Who's got a comment here? What's this?
Rich had once. He said, "Could somebody please post a link to the Hooping Live program?"
It's hoopinglive.com, isn't it?
.com, and that's on Twitter, Facebook, everything. She's got Hooping Live locked down.
Oh boy, I think there was a real battle for that one.
There is no better show on the face of the earth.
She is a sweetheart, though. She's not just drop dead gorgeous. She is a sweetheart.
I think that's a great brand name. It's easy to spell.
And I'll tell you what, she's got a future. Okay, all BS aside, I've seen her interviewing and doing some stand-ups, a product demo for Craig. She's actually got game. If she was local, I'd hire her in a second to be like a TV reporter. She's really good. She's good on her feet and she's smart. She's not. I mean, she's drop dead gorgeous, obviously, but she is a great talker as well. And I'm not being smart. I'm being serious. And Jody is like totally like, whatever, Dan. All right, Alan. So you want to advance or move on, or what are we doing here? I see we have a new topic.
Oh,
Dan wanders off on some irrelevant question.
Why would we move on? That would actually get the show over with at some point.
All right, so Chrome prepares patch from, or did you have something you wanted to? You said you had some 10-minute rant about something.
I honestly can't imagine.
It's funny when I said 10-minute rant, the camera went to Peter.
That's not a problem.
Alan, did you do time with a link when he talked about Hooping Live?
Probably not. I think that was covered under the Dan rambles about something.
Craig, you have editing privileges on the doc, so you can put that in there. Craig mentioned CraigShipp.com's HoopingLive.com featuring plus Audrey Scherer. You can, the whole, maybe a photo.
I didn't.
You can put a photo. It's a Google Doc.
Actually, I didn't mention CraigShipp.com.
I'm sure you can.
Now that you did.
Right. So, okay, so Chrome prepares a patch for microphone snooping bug, but can't push it out. And it says, I want Alan to check this link to make sure it's the one he wants. I have no idea what the hell that is or who put it in there. Let's do a quick check-in on Michael Ellis.
Oh, yeah, it's the Mike Ellis Snapchat.
Mike Ellis cam. There we go. Down for the count. It's pretty early. Normally it's about right. He'll be back, though. He'll wake up again and be revived. It's a power nap. So Ronald Reagan used to do those for about 20 minutes. It's almost. I hope he's not deceased, because he's kind of in that.
That's just mean.
Okay, so anyway.
You know what? Maybe it's the show. Maybe we put him to sleep.
It's so long, yeah. Okay,
he's
so anyway,
dreaming about hooping, is what it is.
Alan, our viewers are demanding that you fill us in on this Chrome prepares patch for microphone snooping bug but can't push it out story, which I know I'm on literally the edge of my seat to hear about. So please do tell.
I'm trying to figure out what was more exciting, this story or you wandering off for, let's see.
I think we will solve the mystery, by the way, of the missing fruit bowl before the end of the show.
I think it was the stink bugs.
I think Costco's wondering where the hell their fruit bowl is.
Anyway, so yeah, basically what this is, one of the features that rolled out relatively recently is being able to have, actually it's not that recently, have Google, have web pages listen to voice commands. Turn on the microphone, listen to voice commands. This is a specification, a web specification. It's a standard, and Chrome's implemented the standard now for several releases. A security researcher, a security and audio researcher, discovered that under some circumstances, a website can turn on the microphone and you get properly alerted when the microphone gets turned on, so you know that you're now being listened to, but that even if you close the primary page for that website, they may have opened up a window in the background that leaves the microphone on, so it can continue to spy on you. Researcher notified Google, Google reacted, created a patch, notified the researchers that they had a patch. But the patch never made it into Chrome. And part of the reason why the patch never made it into Chrome is that Google, the Chrome team is saying that they're trying to coordinate now with the standards body about what the correct behavior is. Because it doesn't do any good if they're the only ones that fix it, if everybody else who's implementing the specification still ends up having the problem. So there's a fix, but they're still debating what the right fix is. And I'm a little surprised that they didn't put it in anyway in an attempt to push what the right fix should be, because, this is Google. They've done this only a couple of 100 times with Chrome so far, pushing their own version of the standard. And it's surprising they're taking this attitude on this one. But, I don't know, Jody, I saw you nodding your head. Do you have any thoughts on this one?
No, just it's kind of scary when you think about it. My understanding was that it was like one of those pop-up advertisings that kind of would stay resident in the background?
It's a pop under advertising, yes.
Yeah, and it would record whatever was going on, even if you didn't know it was going.
Yeah, and
So-
again, you get the notice when it first starts up. So if you think about it, you'll have it in mind. But honestly, if you're clicking on a link and a website comes up, and when that website comes up, it says your microphone is turned on, and you then close that website, your instinct is, okay, I've closed the website, the microphone should be turning off.
And that's kind of scary when you think about it, because they just discovered that bug. What other bugs are out there? I mean, if you leave your laptop in your bedroom or something, Pam, like, is it secretly recording?
Well, I mean, this goes along with the and I'll toss this one to Craig, the discovery a month or so ago that although the built-in eyesight on a Mac turns its light on when it's recording and turns its light off when it's not, apparently they put in a back door so that you could turn the light off and keep recording.
Absolutely. That's why people put black tape on their cameras. The old-fashioned way is the way that always works.
Well, and it's interesting too, because there was a school up here where the kids were taking the computers home, and it was recording the children. So that was like a big brouhaha in this area.
That was a big issue a year ago, wasn't it?
Yes. Yeah.
A number of people got in trouble for that one.
Yep. So, I guess the lesson is don't secretly spy, whether it's Google Glass in a theater or.
I just wish somebody would take my photo. Like I say, I'll pay them $10.
Doesn't Audrey take your picture?
No, nobody takes my picture.
How come?
I don't know. I guess I'm not interesting.
Well, we do
take my picture. If I saw you somewhere, would you take my picture?
Sure, absolutely.
Okay.
And I'm a good photographer.
I'm headed up there.
I'd even take your picture with glass, Craig. I wouldn't go out of my way to take your picture with glass, but I'd take your picture with glass.
He would do it surreptitiously. When are you coming up, Craig?
What's the temperature there now?
It's too cold. It's like today, gosh, I think the high was around 13, 14.
Probably
It's
not
ridiculous.
anytime soon, yeah.
No, it's ridiculous out right now.
Yeah, my guess is not anytime soon. But you can come down here. We always have room for you, you know that.
We're in the single digits. I'm sorry, I missed that.
Yeah, you can come down here. We always have room for you.
I might. My mom's in Orlando, so.
Okay, so speaking of buses, there's been a controversy in
I
San
saw
Francisco.
that segue coming.
Yeah, absolutely. There's been a
Buses.
controversy in San Francisco with the Google buses, Apple buses, the major tech companies are busing folks from, I guess, in and out of San Francisco to their headquarters. There have been protests and bus stoppages, to coin a term. And apparently now they've made a deal with the city of San Francisco. There's a larger issue at play about affordable housing, and Alan can get into this, but now they've made a deal. The news is that the negotiation is that they're each going to pay $1 per bus stop when they stop, and I think it's going to be like $1.5 million a year or something. So it's chump change to them, because as we saw, they make $6 million a day. Just Google, or an hour, excuse me. So
and
this is
honestly,
not a lot of money for them, and frankly, there is a cost of upkeep for bus stops.
Well, here's the thing. From what San Francisco has said, this $1 per physical stop is paying for the program itself. So San Francisco is not going to be making any money at all on this. And this is a pilot project. It's not entirely clear
Don't they
why
benefit
they
though?
didn't make it $2.
Don't they benefit from having all the cars off the road? Every bus that goes by is 20 to 70 people who would otherwise be in individual automobiles. There's a
lot of
Ellis
different
cam.
there's a lot of different angles to this issue, and it's a tough issue to untangle. The people who are in favor of this sort of thing, yes, they make the arguments that, hey, you're now getting people who are investing in San Francisco who are willing to live there. They're not going to be spending money they're not going to be spending the time in a car and the pollution that's associated with it. Many of the people, they're choosing to live in San Francisco because they don't want to have a car. So these are how they can still commute to their work, not need to own a car, and yet be a vibrant part of the San Francisco community. The counter-arguments to it are that you've now got these additional buses that are using public resources for a specifically private activity. Yes, so that this private mass transit system benefits a very, very tiny community, while everyone else is forced to use the older, the more aging mass transit system. And you're almost creating this multi-tier mass transit system, and there are people that are questioning whether that's a good thing. And there's some valid points to that. Not to mention the fact that by enabling people to live in San Francisco, you're driving the rent prices through the freaking roof. I mean, it's ridiculous what rent in San Francisco is. And if you're not enabling that, these people are going to live elsewhere, and the rents are going to go through the roof elsewhere. So there's a lot of... It's not a cut and dried issue. San Francisco, without a doubt, should be doing more. The fact that San Francisco has, for decades now, been neglecting its housing stock is ridiculous, and it's a shame. I read an article today talking about the ridiculous housing prices, the incredible citizen bureaucracy that essentially needs to go through in order to build new housing, concerns about where this is going to lead in the future, and this is an article written in 1999, and everything they wrote about has come true and has gotten worse.
What's weird is that there's a similar effect where Craig and I live in the D.C. suburbs, and you don't see this sort of thing. People are not upset about the cash infusion that comes from having, big spending entities spending big in your area. But in San Francisco, apparently that's a big thing. I can think of a lot of communities that would be very happy if people would move in and hire people, interns for $80,000 a year and engineers for $160,000 a year.
Well, but here's the thing. I mean, in most of your communities, in most of the communities elsewhere that we see, you're either a bedroom community, or you're the center of some level of, some kind of production. So, I don't know Port Royal very well, but I assume that you kind of see yourself as a bedroom community for DC. So DC is your local industry. Your tax base comes from your residents, correct?
Well, I mean, we're actually a tourist trap. We're where the Skyline Drive begins. So there's lots of hotels, gift shops, antique stores, etc. Because rich folks from Northern Virginia and DC come down. But your point's well taken. Peter, what do you think about this? Thoughts about the bus controversy in San Francisco, if you have any? I don't know.
The thought I have is a little bit broader than the specific incidents there, and goes into this whole resistance movement that I think we're going to see over the next couple generations, where and it's just public perception things on just technology in general. I don't know. My perspective is way more broad than what you guys are talking about.
Well, no, that actually brings up some interesting points, and I think it ties to what Jody was talking about earlier, that there's been a growing negative tide against Google in general. And I'm wondering how much this is part of that negative tide. I don't know if Jody.
Well, and that's what I was trolling with my White House comment, was to see if anybody would elaborate on that.
But you know what? That's not necessarily true, and I don't think that there's a negative feeling towards Google. I don't think it extends to all of Google. I think it's specifically Glass, and I think part of it is because it came out with an exorbitant price tag. It was limited in quantity, and those people who had access to it basically consider themselves to be suddenly rock stars, taking pictures of themselves in showers, and every profile picture, they were at a trade show, somebody tries it on, suddenly that becomes their profile picture. And you know what the rest of us are saying? Like, big deal. You know, you guys, you spend...
Did my network just go out, or did Jody's?
I think
we just lost
you
Jody,
and say,
actually.
let me try it. What did I do?
Go ahead, Jody.
No, I was just gonna say, would I come up to you and try it? Absolutely. But do I think it's like anti-cool at this point? Yeah, because when I see pictures of somebody wearing them, I think loser.
Well, and Jody,
I think the big technology that's in contention here, and this is, you know, this all spawned. We're talking about the big protest outside the house of the one engineer. He was one of the engineers for the autonomous vehicle, and I think that's the scary thing is, you know, the protest here. It's not about glass. It's not about your privacy. It's about autonomy. It's about machines taking over, you know, human labor and different tasks that we were used to, you know, getting freedom from. You know, I was thinking about this on my drive home from work today, as I saw a car that was right in front of me. Instead of slowing down for the car that was slowing down in front of him, there's this thing in Tennessee where people don't pay any attention to what the heck's going on, and they just slam on their brakes and they stop their car from 70 miles an hour to, it's not, you know, I know, it's everywhere. But so they just slam on their brakes, and instead of slowing down, they stop. So I have less amount of time to react, so I slow down and stop. So I was thinking, as this was all happening in split seconds, if I was in an autonomous car, this wouldn't have happened, first of all, because the car in front of me would be autonomous, and they would know how fast they were going. But then I thought, wait a minute, if I didn't have an autonomous car, I wouldn't be able to downshift, get in the other lane, speed past this guy, and get on my merry way if I had an emergency or something I needed to be going to. I would be stuck in the algorithm or the programming or of whatever vehicle I was in. So in just that split second, I was thinking of the consequences of autonomy versus the consequences of free will and, you know, driving and getting around as we do today. And I can definitely see where there's two sides to that argument.
And, you know, here's my take on that, honestly. I mean, would it make sense for some people who are lousy drivers? Absolutely. I'm so strongly independent. I ride a motorcycle. I like the feeling of being in control. I don't want to ride on the back. I want to ride my own bike. And to me, it's like the antithesis of having something drive for me. So,
and I think that's the sentiment of the people that are protesting and holding these bus stops, as Dan
no, I think there should be people who have to take the autonomous cars because they're lousy drivers.
Well, and then that's another fear that's propagated is who's going to decide who gets the autonomous car and who gets the free will.
The government.
Which topic are we on?
We're on bus stops, but we're on what's driving those vans.
I definitely want the autonomous.
No pun intended.
We're no longer on the bus stop one. We're now sort of on the next one, and we're just kind of, you know.
We're somewhere in limbo.
Well, my perspective is broader. I'm sorry, I shouldn't have elated.
All right, go ahead, Alan. Can you intro the next topic? Alan, can you intro the next topic?
You do realize that the buses can stop anywhere, and the city's not going to have anything to say about it. They don't have to stop at designated bus stops, just like a school bus doesn't have, you know, doesn't stop at city bus stops. They stop.
Pam, the city has everything to say about it. The city can pass laws. The city can say you can't run the buses. Period. I mean, they can use the strong arm of big government as much as they want to.
Sure.
I mean, you all have all empowered them to do so, and they're going to do
move someplace else.
But Pam,
and that's right. If companies like Google and so forth are hassled enough, then they'll move somewhere where they're welcome, like Front Royal, Virginia would welcome them.
Pam.
Yep.
Thank you. But Pam, buses can't stop anywhere. I mean, these are going to be buses that are sitting there for some number of minutes while passengers load and unload. So it's not like they're, you know, stopping quick. You know, one person jumps on.
Okay, so
They're stopping and blocking traffic.
I live in Podunk, North County, South Riverside County, and two of our bus stops, we only have two, and they don't run very often, but one of them is in a frickin' parking lot next to a senior center. So, look, buses don't have to be parked on the street. They could park in the parking lot of the, whatever, and
okay.
wait for,
It's a valid,
so.
But
yeah.
here's the thing: you're talking a busy city. There aren't too many parking lots in the center of a city. The reason why the bus stops are so attractive is twofold. One, there's a shelter there already. And two, I believe most of them are out of the mainstream part of traffic, so traffic can continue unabated.
Have you been to downtown San Francisco and watched the buses pull over?
I have not carefully studied the buses.
Yeah, I don't. I think they do a lot of like double parking and they do stop traffic, and it is a problem. So yeah, I see what you're saying. They would have to go someplace central, and pick up their passengers. And you're right, parking is at a premium in downtown. But that's assuming that all of these bus stops are actually downtown San Francisco, and I don't think everyone lives in downtown San Francisco. But I'm not sure.
I'm not sure either. But again, I'm assuming that since they're going to be going for current bus stops, that they're at least on major mass transit routes already. It's not like they're just, and that's part of the attraction, is that people tend to build housing around mass transit routes, or vice versa. That's where the people are. Random parking lot next to random rundown supermarket is not where the people are.
And just so you know, in California, we don't need sheltered bus stops because it doesn't do anything. The weather is...
I thought it rained in San Francisco occasionally.
Occasionally, yeah.
I realize that you're not being sheltered from the snow or the cold, but
so the alternative here is going to be for San Francisco to charge money for Google and Facebook and whatever other company to pull into their bus stops. Is that
$1 per bus stop? So obviously the time to sell Google stock is now.
They'll just slowly put the arm on them as much as they think they can get away with without running them out of town. It's always a tug of war between those issues. How much money can we bleed out of this business before it decides, hey, I'm out of here?
Well, one of the reasons
they'll try to get as much as they can and see what happens, right?
Well, one of the orders. They're probably trying to subsidize the lost business that they're getting for.
Well, no,
it's more about that they're upset about their voters, the activists, the vocal minority pissed off.
There's all these rich people that have all this money, and we should have it, and they shouldn't. That's the deal. Give it to us.
It's their fault that I'm not rich.
That's right.
So, Alan,
just for the record,
we're on this. Go ahead, Alan.
Just for the record, Pam, this is apparently a San Francisco bus stop. I see a shelter here. I see a white line that doesn't look like it's a full lane, but it does look like it's
probably a bike
off to the side there.
Yeah, it looks like a bike.
That looks like a bike lane. Yeah.
Not even a porta potty.
Yeah.
For $1, you would expect some amenities. Okay, so are we talking about the engineer's house protest, Alan?
Not yet, but we're about to.
Okay, I see a time code there. I was just wondering if we could get to it.
Peter brought it up.
I jumped the shark on that. I'm sorry.
Go ahead. Apparently protesters rallied around this guy's house, and I guess he was instrumental in Google Street View, et cetera, et cetera. Peter, Alan, one of you guys want to intro this?
Sure. Well, apparently earlier this week, a number of protesters gathered around a Google engineer's house, trying to. I've heard mixed reports about how hard they tried to prevent him from actually going to work. And when he did leave, they started, canvassing the neighborhood and handing out leaflets, basically talking about how this guy was evil incarnate. In fact, I think that's exactly the phrasing used on some of the leaflets. So I've seen a lot of reaction to this, ranging from what the is going on to some people being very upset about the fact that there's this kind of intimidation going on. I see you nodding, Peter. You want to elaborate some more on this?
No, it was Anthony Lewandowski, and the pamphlet. It looks like it was kind of like an Instagram picture, but it said Anthony Lewandowski is building an unconscionable world of surveillance, control, and automation. He's also your neighbor. With it was actually a street view picture of his house, and I believe that was what was pamphleted out to his neighbors, and it just brings up what we were talking about. And it's funny, we go back, what was it, a month, 2 months ago, we were speculating on what the barges were for. And my speculation at that point was it's going to be Google showcasing their products to help with public perception. And, that's the whole battle they have. Is it their job to show the world, what their products really do, what they're capable of, what their purpose is? That's debatable. But there's going to be this big resistance over not just what Google's doing, but everybody's doing. Apple just filed some really, and I'm sorry if this is later for the show, but some really scary patents today, that I was listening to on the news about sensors, biosensors. What's your pulse? What's your blood pressure? How much are you sweating right now? And they're going to use that to target situational or contextual ads. I mean, Google gets a bad rap because they're the biggest company doing this type of thing. But I think we're at a certain point in our technological advancement where people are going to have unrational fear, unrational argument, and I don't really know how to say this, but I mean, there's just going to be a movement where people aren't going to be cool with everything going on in the advancement of technology, and I think we're there now.
Kind of like GMO.
Well, and it's funny, we were talking about that over dinner tonight. I was having dinner with a couple friends, and we were talking about an article I read, and I think it was on Slate, but it was talking about vaccines and GMO, and basically what it said is the problem with our generation, the 3 generations that are here now, the most prevalent, is we aren't familiar with the Dust Bowl, we aren't familiar with polio, and we aren't familiar with all of these things that really threatened our nation and threaten the health of our people, and these things that we've done to prevent that. Go ahead.
This sounds like a post I made a couple of weeks ago on the subject, but yes.
No, in fact, it may have been your post that brought up the conversation. I don't remember the source, but no, go ahead, Alan.
No, one of the things that I brought up in that article, and I was kind of talking about, is how we have a number of people who are you tend to see a trend amongst people who tend to be more liberal, that they are very, very heavily anti-GMO, but at the same time they tend to continue to be in favor of vaccinations. And they will use arguments about vaccinations saying, look at the science says this is good, the science. And then they'll turn to GMOs and they won't back it up with science.
Well, the funny thing is that a lot of vaccines are made using recombinant proteins, which are basically made by GMO.
What? Say that again.
Recombinant proteins.
Oh, recombinant proteins.
In fact, insulin. There's 1 or 2 brands of insulin that use a recombinant protein or recombinant form of insulin. That's basically they stick a piece of DNA into a bacteria, and the bacteria secretes the insulin. So that is a genetically modified organism. Every time that you put DNA into another living thing, that's genetically modified, right? So, okay, Dan.
Pam, you realize 300 years ago you would have been hanged for what you just said.
Okay, so Not
except for sex.
I just want to point out that we've gone to recombinant proteins. I'm completely vindicated for my random observation of the Costco fruit bowl. Now, for
And
my
I just want to
ADHD
point out
moment.
that Dan is insisting that we talk about some politics thing later, so
Yeah.
he's going to get his revenge on us.
I just know the guy, and he's getting raked over the coals, and it's an interesting story. It's my governor. Okay, so I guess are we done with the recombinant proteins angle on the Google engineer's house? Or
I guess. I mean, my biggest concern.
or we can go into more of that, because that's definitely an unexplored angle of this story.
Jody made a comment that she thinks it's just Google Glass, and I don't think it is. I think there has been a widespread backlash against Google recently.
Yes.
Glass is
it's
one.
going to get. The bigger Google gets, the worse it's going to get.
Now let's talk about this though. The main issue I think that the neighbors had wasn't with Google Glass or the autonomous car, but it was with Google Street View.
Wait.
I thought it was recombinant proteins. I'm getting confused now.
The neighbors didn't have a problem. The protesters showed up and passed out leaflets to the neighbors. The neighbors probably had barbecues with the guy during the summer. So
it's like the Walmart. So it's like the Walmart protesters, none of whom work at Walmart. They're all paid guys getting a $50 gift certificate.
A bunch of wingnuts showed up and did this protest.
Right, and actually, I don't think their problem is specifically with Street View. It's with the autonomous cars and autonomous robots, because they're suspecting that now that Google's bought Terminator robots, that's what they're going to be doing next. I think that's their bigger concern.
And just to clarify before we move on, Pam, should our viewers be very, very worried and concerned about, or immediately go out and purchase recombinant proteins? I can't remember what their status is.
I think that when they decide to bash Monsanto, should be a different conversation than bashing genetically modified organisms.
Exactly. Some of the business practices of Monsanto have been combined with GMO in the same way that like Android is synonymous with Samsung to a lot of people when really it isn't. GMO is a lifesaver in my opinion, and that doesn't excuse some of the crazy practices of some farmer who some bird is taking a dump on his crop, and all of a sudden there's some crazy new corn growing and he gets sued 5 years later. That doesn't diminish the value of GMO foods.
Well, not even just GMO foods, GMO products, even outside of foods. There's a crap load of GMO products that have nothing to do with food,
and some of them
those cannot be lumped. Those can't be lumped in with Monsanto's shady business practices and the fact that Congress is kowtowing to them. That's a completely different. They should be separated when you're talking about the evils of big corporations. That's all.
Excellent. Okay, so speaking of evil corporations, our next topic. Google may be supporting Bitcoin and wallet or not. See what I did there? So what's the deal there, Alan?
Considering you didn't write the
Let's go to
headline,
Kadeaus, because
exactly what you
Kadeaus
did
is literally cheerleading here on a fruit high, sort of basically a carbohydrate-induced coma. Go ahead, Kadeaus, tell us what the deal is here.
I have nothing to say on this topic.
Excellent. So, Alan?
What?
See, he is on a fruit high. Go ahead, Alan.
Yeah, so the quick story here is that there were rumors floating around earlier this week saying that Google was going to be supporting Bitcoins as part of Google Wallet, that they were going to be announcing this at the next release, that and the entire Bitcoin community was so excited and thrilled about this. And Google essentially then put out a release saying, well, we're looking at all sorts of new technologies. No. So, this is, in some ways it's usual, but in some ways I know how much just mentioning Bitcoin will get Dan to make his "I'm so confused about this" face that
yeah,
that I couldn't resist.
Yeah,
Hey, Dan, I got a video that I need to get you so
I
that
don't
way
get
you
it.
can understand Bitcoin.
I don't get it either.
It
Yeah,
sounds
I'll
like
share it with you
like
real quick.
a fragile scam. But I don't
It's
know.
as much of a scam as diamonds and gold are scams.
Yeah, because diamonds are in no way
Or
rare.
currency as a whole.
I mean, it's all speculation. It's another commodity to trade now. The interesting development, though, is not on the hearsay of what Google is or isn't going to do. It's the fact that Tiger Direct yesterday announced that they will start accepting it as a form of payment.
How much of that is real, and how much of that is it's a PR stunt, and maybe one or two people will use that?
It doesn't matter if it's a PR stunt, if it's real or not. The fact that they're going to accept it as a valid form of payment further establishes Bitcoin as a currency for global trade.
Or establishes it as a PR stunt.
It doesn't matter, Dan. They're going to accept it, which validates it as a currency.
But
I'm just
it's a
saying.
legitimate question. Is this something one or two people are going to use, or is this something that, you know?
But even if
It's a real
if it
thing.
is a PR stunt and they're one of the first to do it, it'll encourage other companies to do it as well. That's just my thought on it. But
Is it the libertarians' currency?
I don't know. It's funny. I was speaking with a banker tonight. I was sitting and having dinner with, and I was asking him about Bitcoin, Dogecoin, and the Doge or Doge. I don't know how to pronounce it, but just asking him about all of those. And basically, he said what was said before. It's the same as gold or platinum or, any other thing that you want to attach value to that doesn't really have any monetary value. Jody, you're shaking your head. What's your thought?
Well, I mean, you have to look at what the underlying value is, right? I mean, if you have gold, it's limited. If you have bitcoins
are limited.
Underlying, there's nothing underlying it other than ostensibly your faith that it's viable.
Well, what's underlying gold?
Not even gold. Cash.
Has alchemy ever been disproved?
Well, yeah, it used to be when the nation started. It used to have gold that stood behind the currency.
Yeah, but that was a really long time ago.
Well, no, the gold standard still holds true for a lot of.
Have we established? Because I saw Jody pause on this. Have we established what the proper plural of Bitcoin is? Is it I have 2 Bitcoins or Bitcoin? Because I've seen it written.
Dan, you couldn't even afford a Bitcoin, so it's irrelevant.
Jody, Jody, going back to the question, what is behind gold? What is behind a diamond that gives them their value?
Well, De Beers is behind the diamonds, right?
Yeah.
And diamonds are not rare. They're not rare. Don't think they're rare. That's the biggest scam going for centuries.
Okay, so Dan, how many do you have? You have lots of them growing in your backyard?
But he doesn't invest in them because
I don't
he
have
knows
any.
that De Beers
I don't
is
have any
holding them
mice. I don't have any mice either. But they're not rare. I mean, I don't have any stars. I don't have any.
Bugs.
Earth.
So here's my question. I mean, I doubt any of you are gemologists, but how do we tell the difference here?
Only because Craig is
between a manufactured diamond and a naturally occurring diamond? Is there a litmus test for that? Does anybody know?
Yeah, I think it has to do with the density and the spectrum.
Okay.
Also the size.
They can tell. I mean, but naturally mined diamonds are it's not rare. There's no shortage of them. It's just it's precious because people want them and they value them as beautiful, but they can constantly mine them.
But so here's my question then. If we can manufacture diamonds, we can culture pearls. I mean, who's to say that alchemy is impossible?
They're not the same value as the naturally occurring ones, though. It's if you get.
But who says they're naturally occurring? They're cultured. I mean, who do we trust?
You have to understand that value is determined by whether people want it or not. That's what's determining value. If nobody cared about gold, gold wouldn't mean anything, and that's the same scenario with Bitcoin.
Right, and that's the point that Peter's been making, and that's what I'm trying to get from Jody, is what is the underlying value to gold?
Value that we've established. It's established over centuries.
Exactly.
But Bitcoin is like a leap of faith. I don't know. I mean,
it's gold.
But do you trust,
Not
Jody?
exactly
Do you trust
the
that
same,
our
no.
government, and this is like you want to talk conspiracy theory?
You guys are getting
Do you
all
trust that our government
and it's
hasn't
late
developed
or
alchemy?
early. You're getting all esoteric. So the question was whether Bitcoins make sense or not. Is that the idea?
Yes, but that's what I'm trying to say. Is Bitcoin, like, who regulates this made-up thing? Like, who's to say there's not an extra 100 Bitcoin on the market, and that devalues whatever Bitcoin's already there?
And the fact that it's not, and then the fact that it's not a government is a problem.
For the
But I
government.
think
Or is
that's
that
the solution,
the
though.
solution? Is that what
That's
people
the
like?
solution.
Right,
Craig
exactly.
would disagree with you right now.
But the
Go
bottom
for it.
line is, if something has value, it has value, regardless of
It
whether the
has
government
value as long
acknowledges
as
that.
Joe-
I wonder what
Joe
Michael was going to say because he was disagreeing and he didn't get to speak. Go ahead, Michael.
I think Craig would, the non-government issue thing, he's probably in favor of that. Me personally, I don't know. I want to wait to see how it, spreads more and see if more companies start adopting it. But the longer it takes, I mean, like they said, the harder and harder it is to get one.
Just
wait a
know
minute,
there are a
wait a
lot
minute.
of deals
Time out,
going
time
on
out.
in the back that y'all don't know about.
I'm sorry, I didn't hear.
Yeah, say that again, Kadeaus.
Value is
He's
determined by
busy
whether
eating his
someone is willing to pay for something. It's just like a property sitting on the side of the road that has been for sale for ages and no one's bought it. Then, is the price too high? If someone's willing to pay me money for something, then it has value, regardless of what a government
We're
entity has
talking
to
about
say
something
about it.
centuries ago. We're talking about the gold standard. We're talking about precious metals and precious stones, and those were what we made the basis of currency on. It was, your monetary notes were valued on gold and valued on silver because those were finite resources on the face of the earth. Now we're in this period where we can manufacture those finite resources, so why do we still consider them valuable? But to take that into Bitcoin, my question, and I'm probably one of the less technical people here on the panel tonight, is if I want to get into this Bitcoin currency, who do I choose to manage whatever investment I make into that, and how do I trust the legitimacy of whatever claims they have of what they'll do with my American or Euro or whatever currency I have?
You have to.
Why don't you manage it yourself?
The thing with Bitcoin is you do have to manage your own. You have to mine it. You have your own wallet. I mean, it's
But
literally
I have to pick somebody to have my wallet. I have
No,
to
you
choose
have
a
your
bank.
own wallet.
No,
you have your own wallet.
No, it's like a good way to say, I guess.
Who do I give my money to get my share of Bitcoin? That's my question.
The other person taking your money.
So it's just like if you were to buy an apple from me. It's the same scenario. It's the same exact scenario. I give you an apple, you give me Bitcoins. It's whatever you want. Doesn't matter the currency.
But how do I get the currency? If I go into the currency exchange and I hand the investment bank $100,000 US, I can then take out 66,000 euros or whatever I'm doing.
All right, let me get
Who
some
am
comments.
I giving my dollars to? Is my question.
Let me get some comments on this topic here. Cy says, Cybernaut says, Bitcoin is basically.
He says it's basically a
God.
Ponzi scheme. First,
I'm trying to find this comment here. Basically, it's
Bitcoin
a
is
Ponzi
basically
scheme.
a Ponzi scheme. First comers get the greatest reward. Something is worth exactly what someone is willing to pay for it. You can make gold from lead. We used to trade with salt. And ICJ then jumps in saying, no, you're all wrong. Bitcoin's value comes from the time it takes them to be generated. At this point, though, Bitcoin's true value is inflated by the public incitement and conjecture. And that's the point, ICJ, is it's worth what people are willing to pay for it.
Exactly.
Everything is, but I still think it's a scam that's going to be brought down.
It's not a scam, but
I don't know enough about it. I shouldn't have said that because I don't know. I don't know enough about it to say that.
Dan, I sent you a video that really dumbs it down in about, it's just 2 minutes, and it dumbs down the whole concept. Everybody I've showed it to finally gets it. And then to answer your question, Peter, there is a trusted place you can go to. It's a website that you can go to, and they do the whole transaction. The CEO has been recognized by Kevin Rose and Google Ventures and the whole 9 yards. Coinbase.com. You can go there when you do your exchange. Your coins come straight to you. So it's not a scam or anything to worry about as far as getting your coins. It's not like you don't have to do it the old Craigslist way where you go out and meet somebody and meet them in the streets and give them $1,000 and hope that they get you the coins or stab you. So yeah.
And also, I do appreciate the ego boost from you sending me something that's a dumb it down video.
Overall,
that gives
I like
me a
Bitcoin.
big,
I don't want to invest into a 3D TV when I know it's not going to be adopted across the entire freaking spectrum, and that's why I'm not even trying to mine one yet.
All right.
Mining is incredibly impractical at this point.
Of course, yeah.
So trying is kind of foolish. But anyway, I think we've beaten this topic to death, and we're running out of time. So, Dan, next topic.
Monday, is this a tease or is this a topic?
That was a tease for a topic, but, you juggled things around, so you put it here.
I just saw Google, so I threw it up there, but then I saw Monday there. So do you want to jump to the... Okay, let's do this. Facebook, there was a story that got some traction, and it said Facebook may have no users by 2017, based on a Princeton study. And, of course, Princeton is obviously, they got some game. I think they're part of the Ivy League, right? So then it turns out at the bottom of the article, because I read the whole article, because every time I see some outlandish thing like this, I always I'm not a headline reader, I'm an article reader. So I read at the bottom, it said the study was based on Google Trends and may not have any validity, right? But it was okay, why would you publish something with some outlandish headline that, I guess you get clicks. So
this goes back to Peter's comment about lack of journalism.
Exactly. As a professional journalist, I can tell you there's a lack of journalism out there. But anyway, so the response was, Facebook came back with a witty response along the lines of when Microsoft came out with Google insulting T-shirts, that Microsoft came back, or Google came back and said, we're excited that Microsoft's getting into wearables. So it was kind of a witty response, and they showed a chart showing that the same Google Trends technique would show that based on Google Trends, Princeton is going to be completely out of business, in 10, 20 years. So this show, I've seen several stories like this that didn't pan out. And we've got another one, in fact, I'll add it in a second, about HP and Windows 7 computers. But what are your initial thoughts on this, Alan?
Let's not add the HP story because we're running out of time. My take on this is it's kind of amusing, but, again, it makes certain assumptions. And one of those assumptions is that Facebook is just going to sit on their laurels, which, they've never done. So come on, let's be real. Facebook's going to be around. They're not vanishing overnight. If they are going to be on a decline, they're certainly going to be fighting back. I think there is some indication that, yes, they're losing a certain amount of their segment, but that doesn't mean that they're going to vanish in 4 years.
They're not losing. They're losing and gaining. They're losing the teens because they're gaining dramatically in the parents and the grandparents. And the teens don't want to be in the same forum. They want to have their own social cliques. And we've talked about this a million times, but they are indeed losing the younger people. Not losing as much as they're not engaging as much. And that's an important distinction to make. They're not hovering on Facebook all day like they used to. They're still checking in.
Well, that's losing when it comes to advertising. That's eyeballs on ads.
Yeah, but it's not like MySpace where we, once a year I check into MySpace just to see, But Facebook, they're still checking in every day. They're just not checking in every 5 minutes like they used to.
Well, but that's what happened. That's what was the start of MySpace's decline. Was that sort of thing.
Any other thoughts on this before we move?
From anyone?
Yeah, I think when anything becomes uncool with the kids, it's on its way down. And my kids, they're on Facebook, but they're onto other things. So, I don't know. I think Facebook has already peaked, in my humble opinion.
I was sitting at lunch today at work, and the average age at the table was, I think, about 32, 34. And 3 out of 5 people at the table were no longer on Facebook.
no longer on at all, or no longer actively using it? I mean,
no longer had accounts.
Really?
We're talking 5 people that used to be actively engaged. Only 2 of those 5 people still have an active account.
Real quick, what were the
average age
reasons
32
for
to
that?
34?
Why?
Yeah, what was the reason for that?
I mean, the reasons may have been various, but the point is, don't narrow this down to just saying teens are on Snapchat now and not using Facebook. I think it's a huge. There's a big pullback in the corporate world, and people that are trying to ascend the ladder are realizing that's something that may not be helpful to their career endeavors.
Well, a lot of people are getting off of it because they find that there's too much drama. You know, I mean, it's ruined relationships, and
and that's what's interesting about the network.
And Google Plus hasn't.
Well, no, that's the interesting thing.
MySpace is the same thing.
Interest-based network, and that's what I find interesting is that it encourages conversations like we're having tonight because we share interests in the same things, but we're not necessarily in the same social circles.
Those guys, those guys you were talking about, not to belabor this, you kind of gave more of an indictment of social media in general rather than Facebook specifically. Did they withdraw from social media completely, or they've switched to another service because they didn't like Facebook specifically?
No, they actually, I think they all use other services to fulfill specific needs. But the argument at lunch was, it was more, it was just the drama and the fact that, having ties or knowledge of other people's social or personal situations that you work with is just not helpful. It's not healthy.
There is a lot of drama around it, and I think that they've alienated a lot of the users by constantly changing the interface. And they add features, they change features, and people become disoriented and unhappy, and then finally they come back again. But I think fundamentally it was a good idea. I think there's a lot of fake accounts on there now. I think that much of the growth that they report is inaccurate, and I mean, I would say in 10 years it's not going to be around.
Wait, I think Michael Ellis wants to comment on this.
Absolutely. We'll check in with the Ellis cam here real quick. He's moving, so there's definitely no. Yeah. Okay. All right. So real quick, we gotta move. So last Google topic, because I got to step out for like 90 seconds, Alan.
Movement.
It's Google is charging for Google Play services or not? What's the deal with that?
Sure. On Monday.
Is this P time?
Yeah, this is Dan's P time.
Okay.
So, yeah, absolutely.
So Monday on Google on our Android week, which is Mondays 9 p.m. Eastern, 6 p.m. Pacific. You might guess that we would be talking about, Android-like stories, which is why you don't hear too many Android stories on this show, because we only have an hour there, so we need to save it up for that. But we will be talking about the story that came out earlier today or yesterday that Google has been moving a number of its components out of the open source Android component and moving them into the more private and restricted Google Play Services component. And there was some talk about how Google is licensing this, and Google has outright denied the fact that they charge for access to Google Play Services. There are some restrictions and some things that you need to agree to do in order to use the Google Play Services. But there is no, from what Google is saying anyway, there is no fee involved in that. We have this question from Cybernaut asking, so why is it that Peter G. McDermott is in black and white? The answer for that is easy to explain. Not only is Peter a Google Glass explorer, but he has also been testing the Google Time Machine. Unfortunately, there were some bugs. He appears to be stuck in 1950. So he is coming to us through the use of 1950s technology in a Google Plus Hangout. So
no, Cy. The real reason is he can't find his matching outfit. So he clashes. So black and white works.
No, wait a minute. He only has a black and white camera?
Well, if you're in the 1950s,
I don't know.
Yeah.
I thought he was protesting the movies thing, going blackout. I thought he was doing this
No.
blackout.
He's just he probably just thinks he looks better in black and white. That's all. It's all good.
It's all
Okay.
good.
All right, so here's the deal.
All good.
I'm gonna do my quick thing here, and then while I do that, we've got very limited time, but we have a little time to do quick hits. If there's anything below this topic that Alan or Pam or anybody else really wants to get on, but we got to be very brief. Just move it up there or start shouting when I'm done. So I just want to talk about our governor of Virginia, Bob McDonnell. Bob McDonnell is a guy I followed for a long time. And I've covered him as a reporter, and I've been at a party with him. I remember getting him. He came in. It was a hot day, and I brought him an iced tea, and it was really funny because as I was approaching, my phone buzzed, and I pulled it up, and it was from the Democratic Party of Virginia chairman with some press release trashing him about how he's evil or something about some policy issue. And so I'm literally looking at this as I'm handing the governor, is like, McDonnell is evil incarnate about this issue, and I'm handing the guy an iced tea as I'm reading this, and I didn't want to be rude and acknowledge it, but it was funny. The guy has been a really interesting governor. He was portrayed as a super right winger when he ran, but when he governed, his last State of the Commonwealth address was basically an incredible list of accomplishments, and when he came in, there was a budget deficit. Now there's a surplus. He did a big bipartisan transportation plan to fix the roads, which were in need of repair. In Japan, they're all excited about Virginia soybeans. Virginia wine's taken off like crazy. It was just this incredible list of accomplishments, creating Virginia jobs, etc. At the same time, there was this tremendous scandal where they took, I think, like $160,000 from this guy, Johnny Williams. And I have friends who know him. I've never met him, but it's a small, we're a small state basically, and people, right? If you're in the news business and you meet people, but it was just the sad thing. He was considered he was considered for vice president for John McCain, and it's just really something to see this. So the scandal broke, and it's interesting about if you follow it at all, and I posted it's a 43-page indictment. It all started when his wife was looking for fancy dresses for the inaugural ball, and she said that her husband was screaming at her about the expenses involved, and then at some point they did golf outings with him and the sons at the golf resort, and they were charging $1,200 green fees plus $1,500 for stuff in the pro shop, a golf bag, shirts, etc. And then a Rolex watch. The wife allegedly, according to the indictment, asked for a Rolex watch inscribed 71st or whatever governor of Virginia, and it was just this super sad story. And so I just wanted to throw that out there that it's interesting. Follow it, and it is a scandal, 100%. But it gets the whole thing of how do you prove a quid pro quo, because it's legal to give gifts. You have to report them, but it's legal to do it. So I just want to throw that out there that this has been a disappointment to me because I've seen the guy, I know the guy, and I just wanted to mention that. So anyway.
Okay. We're talking about the guy that backed the bill requiring transvaginal ultrasounds, right?
Obviously that's
I'm just putting that out there.
Yeah, that's obviously John Boehner backed the shutdown even though he disagreed with it. I mean, you got to do what you got to do.
Okay, Dan, thank you for that ratings bonanza. Peter McDermott, how was your Google Plus week?
My Google Plus week was fantastic.
Can you elaborate?
I kind of trolled
Michael Ellis.
Wait, was that Michael Ellis?
It's a power nap.
Wait, breaking news, Michael Ellis is...
He's stirring.
He's awake, folks.
Is he awake?
I see. I thought I saw his eyes open.
Yes.
Oh! There we go. Plus week.
We were
right?
concerned you were deceased, so obviously the initial conclusion was wrong.
We're only halfway done, Michael Ellis. You might as well,
Oh my God.
Yeah, we still got 4 more hours to go. So go ahead, Peter. Elaborate on your "It was awesome" Google Plus week.
No, it was great. I've been spending a lot of time on my blog. Every day now, I'm trying to come up with a new post sharing ideas.
And
what I do.
What URL might we go to for that?
Yeah, it's myideatap.com, and it's just kind of my ideas trickling out of the faucet that is my brain. So myideatap.com. A couple cool ideas I put on there. One today was about manufacturing. It was a continuation of a previous post on manufacturing scarcity. So basically asking the question, when you hit critical mass in social media, does it actually benefit you as a personal brand or as a company to stop interacting with your following? So
what's critical mass?
Well, and that's part of it's a compound question. That's part of the question too. So
I mean,
if you're interested in that kind of thing, you should check out the blog.
And that URL again is
myideatap.com.
myideatap. What happened to the other one you had? You had the it was a cool domain. What's the other one you have?
I've got obviously petergmcdermott.com, mcdermottmedia.com. Sorry, Dan, beat you to that one. And Micro Patrol.
Micro Patrol was my favorite domain.
Well, you're more than welcome to have it.
Pam Adger, how was your Google Plus week?
My Google Plus week was great.
You survived the forest fire.
I did. It wasn't even.
You're making a much bigger deal out of the forest fire than anybody else is.
Yeah,
It's an even bigger ratings bonanza than my McDonnell anecdotes. How was your Google Plus week?
It was good. Went shooting out in the middle of nowhere.
Photos look great, Pam, by the way.
Huh?
Photos look great.
There are some nice guns.
Yep.
Yeah.
What were you shooting?
30-06, a 7.62 vintage check rifle.
Just to clarify,
shotgun, 45 caliber handgun.
Just to clarify, you're a liberal Democrat, white lady.
I love guns.
Your husband's a black dude who's a Tea Party Republican, and you're the one out shooting guns. He
went with us.
Oh, okay. So he's
yeah, I know.
He's learned you about this.
Yeah, him and his friends invited us.
Oh, okay.
Invited
cool.
me. Yeah. Yeah, that's a hobby that we both.
But you didn't. So. You knew better than to invite Dick Cheney.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, because it was a private range, so yeah. It wasn't like one of those places where safety has to be common sense, right? So, so I did that, and everything else was pretty chill. I did post some what would you like out of Google Plus today, and unfortunately, because of the number of topics or whatever, I didn't get a chance to talk about them, but I definitely will save that post for next week, and I'll actually put it on the agenda, and maybe I'll ask the question again so that I have more feedback. But other than that, it was. I survived the shutdown. Didn't even realize it happened. So
somehow.
It's all good. Yeah, I happened to be off air at that time, which was perfect timing. Yeah.
Excellent, Michael Ellis. How was your Google Plus week? And welcome back to the panel.
I've been here the whole time.
Indeed, we've checked in on you periodically. As only we will. So how was your week?
Good week. My community language practice hangouts broke the 50,000 member mark this week. So we're very excited about that. And if anybody's listening out there, we're still looking for hosts for a number of different languages.
And probably participants, right? I mean, if somebody's interested in learning a new foreign language or just practicing, right? Maybe Kadeaus might be interested in hosting one for Japanese, or even participating to brush up.
Yep.
Hey, is there a Korean one?
There is not a Korean host at the moment, but the community supports the idea of people just spontaneously starting their own Hangouts. And we hope from that organically we'll grow some other hosts.
Can I ask a random question on that topic? North
Can
and South.
you ask a random question? Are you kidding me?
I guess I should say, may I ask?
I think that
have North and South Korea developed different dialects over the years, or is it still Korean? Because they're separated, right?
Yeah, I'm sure they're different dialects, but I don't know.
No clue.
Okay, cool. So what's the URL or page that people should look for if they're interested in teaching or learning a new language?
The community is Language Practice Hangouts Community in Google+. The web page is languagepracticehangouts.com, and from there you can find all of the supported languages. We support all languages, but right now we have hosts for a pretty large number of different languages. And we're always looking for more participants and more hosts.
Excellent. And so now we move from a beautiful polished mahogany bed frame to Augusta, Georgia.
Before we move on, I want to actually answer your question, Dan. There are actually quite a number of dialects of Korean. Looking at Wikipedia, it itself shows on a map about 8 of them. And although there are although both North and South Korea have an official language, there are far more dialects than those, and they tend to break down amongst geographic lines. And since Korea is a very mountainous region, or mountainous country, you tend to find different dialects in different mountain regions where there hasn't been a lot of crossover. So
is it like India where there are completely different languages, Alan, or is it like someone from New England and someone from, a rural southern state might have a very different way of talking, but it's still the same language? You know what I mean?
We have this from Sai. South Korea has a drawl. From what I'm reading here, it tends to break down that South Korea has adopted a lot more Anglicisms because of their relationship with the West than North Korea has. So, yeah, you're actually beginning to get some language differences. And I'm sure there were language differences before. I mean, that's part of the nature of it, just like in the same way that we do have New England has language differences from other parts of the country. There are some very nifty diagrams. I refer you to the Wikipedia page, which will reference,
I'm sure we'll get a significant uptick this week.
I'll be going to South Korea rather in a month or so.
So we'll expect a detailed report from you on this subject.
Yeah.
Will you be? You're a tall guy, Michael Ellis. Will you be engaging in basketball diplomacy in the Koreas?
I'm just going to link to the Wikipedia, Dan, for you. Okay.
Thank you, man.
Hey, look up Dennis Rodman while you're down there, will you?
Absolutely. Okay, so
Michael Ellis.
Michael Banks.
Michael Banks.
The other tall guy who has no body fat, and we hate him big time because of that. Michael Banks in Augusta, Georgia. How was your Google Plus week, sir?
It was pretty good. Playing with the photos feature, type in clouds, get clouds kind of thing. Other than that, not much. I wasn't affected either by the blackout, sort of with all the Google stuff, but it was interesting to know that happened.
How's the weather in Augusta?
Cold. Shocking.
It's cold here. Now, your definition of cold may differ from mine. What's
I know all of the definitions since I did live up, in Chicago, so I know about the negative 22s and that.
Right.
But down here, cold right now is like 38.
I'll point out that he's wearing short sleeve shirt.
Right. I'm wearing a long sleeve shirt under a white shirt. Yeah, so it's like
I'm wearing a sweater and a dress, and it's 62 degrees.
Well, I'm not wearing a dress.
But Pam, the night is young. The night is young, Pam. I guess are you in Tokyo or California? Kadeaus, Couloute, our newest panelist.
I'm in Newport Beach.
Newport Beach, California. How was your week?
My Google Plus week was good. Helped another business get on Google Plus pages and start working with events with them. So, yep. And then apparently I bought a $16 thing of fruit. I've been sitting here eating it. So,
will you answer the question? Seriously, our viewers want to know. We've gotten several comments.
Seriously,
is that a Costco fruit bowl for real?
Well, Trevor says that it's a Costco fruit bowl, but it's actually $16 from Ralph's. So, yeah.
So you got hosed because it was $11 at Costco.
No kidding. Costco. I had to get here. I didn't have time to run to Costco. So
did you eat the whole freaking thing? It's like 4 pounds of fruit.
Yeah, that was my dinner.
Man, it was your breakfast, lunch, and dinner.
I love it.
4 pounds?
No, I don't know if it was 4 pounds. I don't know. I just know I just buy this every once in a while. 3 pounds. 3.22.
So you eat a pound an hour of food, and you have no body fat.
Why do you say I don't have any body? Oh, never mind.
We
don't go around that road.
I've seen you on why did you visit Japan and you have no body fat? So, because Kadeaus is actually a star of Japanese television, and we're proud to have him on our program. I'm going to go to Alan in a second, but my Google Plus week is great. I'm kind of a zombie tonight because I woke up yesterday morning at 7:30 a.m., started the paper, and I finished at 4. About 3:30, I got it to the guy who makes the plates, and then he confirmed at about 4, and then finally about 6 a.m. I went to sleep and woke up at noon. So 6 hours sleep after a 23-hour day, and I'm kind of a zombie.
I didn't see any
and
of that
despite this,
posted
you
on
want
Google
this show
Plus.
to keep going.
No, I don't. I'm eager to watch another episode of West Wing for the 75th time.
But I didn't see any of
Well, and that's
posts
it
on
for Google Plus week this week. Is Dan goes to Netflix. Thanks everybody for watching. And
Please visit petergmcdermott.com.
So where are you filming Dan's life at again?
MichaelEllisIsAwakeNow.com. What'd you say, Kadeaus? Kadeaus, you're muted for some reason.
No, he's
Or
not.
lost. Anyway,
I
had another really good Google Plus week. Been developing some glassware, and it is going awesomely. So that has been great. And my new XE Charlie edition of Google Glass finally came in UPS today. So I'm thrilled to have Glass back and using it.
Yay.
And is anybody else alive besides Michael
Coming
Ellis
to
and
a
I?
theater near you.
Awesome.
Okay,
well,
so-
we're all excited. So, folks, we do 2 programs. We do Our Android Week, which is every Monday night at 9 p.m. Eastern, 6 p.m. Pacific. We do Google Plus Week, which is every Friday night at 8:30 p.m. Eastern, 5:30 p.m. Pacific, the longest-running show on Google Plus for many reasons.
Our Android week, he does not mean 1 hour.
no, wait a minute, Dan.
It's
You said
close.
longest running show. Is that how long it's been on the air, or how long it is on the air?
All the above. All the above. We're proud of all of our accomplishments, as limited as they may be.
And we are proud of all of the comments that we've gotten tonight. I mean, we
Thank you
really
very much,
do enjoy
yes.
all the comments. You know,
AJ
Even
Shore,
though
Cybernaut, thank you for watching.
even the
guys.
one that was criticizing us for not acknowledging the comments. But a lot of that's a logistics issue.
like these from Kevin. Google Glass is not cool. It's very cool. And of course, this one from Rich. I gotta always appreciate Rich's comments.
Yeah, Rich is actually Alan's other account, just for those of you watching.
Exactly. I'm glad you figured that out. I'm glad you figured it out, Peter.
Thank you all for watching. We really appreciate it. We'll be back this Monday at 9 p.m. Eastern, right, for Android Week, our Android Week, and 1 week from tonight at 8:30 p.m. Eastern. If Alan can show up on time, which he usually does every 3 times, he's late because very important.
Every 4
activities.
times, and anyway.
But,
Sign off, Dan. Say good night, Dan.
Obviously, he's worth waiting for because we do every time. Thank you so much. Thanks to the panel, and it's great to have Kadeaus with us now. We're very excited about that. It was a fun show tonight. Good to see Peter back and everybody, and Pam, our newest co-host. So anyway, thank you all very much, and to everyone watching, we want to, as I find my button here, we want to wish you all a very awesome Google Plus week. See you next Friday, 8:30 p.m. Eastern, 5:30 p.m. Pacific. Peace.